stick with it on. So we, and then they're gonna put, you could plug it in there and have it on the screen and repeat. And then Isaac was gonna try to make this CD play it.
For the USB.
Kamal's gonna do it so rules. Two different. Eldon came. He's like, why when I tell you to play my favorite song? I said because for one, when Mike's up there, he doesn't have it on. Right? And plus, I had all the I had all the who's knocking at the door. Yeah. Third.
Right.
Well, if I'm not here, guess what? You ain't getting it. Mike doesn't have it. Mike could get it. He just fucking refuses. But
Can't figure out.
fucking
Because his phone has to have.
yeah. I mean, we found this. I mean, he got it,
Yeah.
and he had that woman anyway.
Right.
All he has to do is change the voice.
Yeah, we gotta find that option.
Yeah, well, he can. I think it's right on that, like where I found mine.
Be in settings somewhere.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Is that good? Yep.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order at 10:04. Before we get into the full meeting agenda for the July 18th, 2024 Chicago Plan Commission meeting, I want to quickly provide guidance to those who want to provide testimony on the cases presented for public hearing today. A few of you may have already submitted forms electronically, but for anyone else who wants, who may wish to testify before the Plan Commission, please fill out the sheets located on the table where you enter the room. Please include your full name, address, if you are for or against the proposal, and if you are here representing yourself or an organization. Please hand your sheets to one of the staff members. People who have completed forms will be called on after each item is presented. Thank you. Out of respect for other speakers, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please line up at the microphone behind me and to my left in the order I call your name, and please do not repeat comments that have already been made by previous speakers. The public comment portion of the meeting is not a question and answer session of staff or the applicant, but an opportunity for attendees to voice their opinions on a particular proposal. Out of respect for others, please do not interrupt or disrupt the speakers. Any individual who disrupts the presentation or any subsequent comment session may be asked to leave the council chambers or, if necessary, may be escorted out by security. We will now call the roll. Commissioner Barclay? Not here. Commissioner Boatright? Thank you. Commissioner Brooks? Thank you. Commissioner Brumfield? Not here. Commissioner Carney? Not here. Commissioner Castañeda? Here. Thank you. Commissioner Dowell? Thank you. Commissioner Escareño? Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Here. Commissioner Johnson? Not here. Commissioner Cadaquia? Thank you. Commissioner Laspata?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons? Here. Thank you. Commissioner Murphy? Not here. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramirez Rosa? Not here. Commissioner Reyes? Not here. Commissioner Soto? Not here. Commissioner Sicho Lopez? Not here. Commissioner Esposato? Not here. Commissioner Tillman? Thank you. Commissioner Villegas? Not here. Okay. We will now approve the minutes from the June 20th, 2024 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting. The minutes were distributed prior to today's hearing. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission held on June 20, 2024?
So moved, Commissioner Mercado.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Laspata. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Tillman. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright? Thank you. Commissioner Brooks? Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dowell? Abstain. Commissioner Escareño? Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Cadaquia? Thank you. Commissioner Laspata?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons? Abstain. Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tillman? Thank you. Motion passes. Just a reminder, as we have returned to in-person hearings, we will take public comments for the items on the agenda after each item has been presented. If you have not already done so and you wish to speak on an item, please complete a testimony slip available at the back of the chamber. Staff members are available to assist if needed and will collect the forms from you. Also, as a reminder, items. Yeah, not right. Okay, never mind. Next on the agenda are matters submitted in accordance to the Interagency Planning Referral Act. Do I have a motion to approve items number C1 listed under the TIF plan heading and items number C2 through C4 listed under the disposition heading? I need a motion. Motion by Commissioner Boatright. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Piñeiro. Roll call vote. Can you confirm Commissioner Boatright? Yes. Thank you. Commissioner Brooks? Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dowell? Thank you. Commissioner Escareno?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Cadaquia? Thank you. Commissioner La Spata?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons? Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tillman? Thank you. Motion passes. Now we will move on to the public hearing presentation portion for matters submitted in accordance with the Lake Michigan and Lakefront and Chicago Lakefront Protection Ordinance and or the Chicago zoning ordinance. With a reminder that item, no, not the first, sorry. The first item is listed as D1, a proposed rezoning of the business plan development number 834, submitted by LPC Chicago LLC for the property generally located at 749 through 757 West North Avenue, 1551-1557 North Halsted Street, 1555-1569 North Clybourne Avenue, and 734 through 754 West Wheat Street. The applicant requests a rezoning of the subject property from business plan development number 834 to first B3-5 Community Shopping District, and then to a residential business plan development to permit the construction of a 37-story building with up to 396 residential dwelling units and approximately 2,500 square feet of retail space. The existing vacant bank building would be demolished and the new building constructed in its place. The other existing two-story concrete and brick retail building containing approximately 46,000 square feet of retail space and the existing four-story parking garage containing 158 parking spaces would remain and provide accessory parking for the PD. The overall FAR will be 5.0. This is item 22317, and this is in the second ward. James will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, my name is James Gwinner with the Department of Planning and Development. The applicant proposes to rezone the subject property from Business Plan Development number 834 to first B3-5 Community Shopping District, then to a residential business plan development to permit the construction of a 37-story building with up to 396 residential dwelling units and approximately 2,500 square feet of retail space with a height of 450 feet and an overall FAR of 5.0. Next. The subject site is located in the Lincoln Park community area.
Yeah. Okay. Praise.
Hey, Noah.
Okay. Thank you. The site is located at the junction of three vibrant commercial corridors at the intersection of North Avenue, Clybourne Avenue, and Halsted Street, within very close proximity to several public transit stops, including the CTA Red Line stop at North and Clybourne and bus stops on Halsted Street and North Avenue. The site is bounded by North Avenue to the north, the elevated CTA Brown Line tracks to the east, and Weed Street and Orchard Park townhomes to the southeast. To the south is a two-story Dick's Sporting Goods store, and across Halsted Street to the west is Apple's Lincoln Park store. This slide shows the current land use context around the site, a mixture of residential, commercial, retail, and entertainment uses. Please. This slide shows the current zoning in the areas immediately adjacent to the site. Next slide, please. Here we have the view of the site from the west with proposed buildings height shown. Sorry, one too far. That's it. With the building's height shown relative to the existing buildings in the immediate area, as well as proposed and approved buildings in Lincoln Yards. Next slide. This slide shows the existing street view at the site looking south down Clybourn Avenue and Halsted Street, and a rendered view of the building's base as it fronts Clybourn Avenue. Next slide. This slide shows the existing street view at the site looking north up Halsted Street and Clybourn Avenue, and a rendered view of the building's base as it fronts Clybourn Avenue. Next slide, please. A community meeting was held on December 4th of last year, and the applicant made several revisions to the project in response to the community feedback they received, including the addition of bird-friendly glazing. Next slide. The proposal is subject to the guidelines of the North Branch Framework Plan adopted in 2017. The document provides guidelines for tall building design, such as maintaining the North Branch Industrial Corridor as an important economic engine and vital job center with the city of Chicago, providing better access for all transportation modes, and building upon the North Branch Industrial Corridor's unique natural and built environment. Now I will turn the presentation over to Paul Shadle and Mariah DeGrino, the applicant's attorneys, who will further explain the details of the proposal.
Thank you, James. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Plan Commission. My name is Paul Shadle. I'm with the law firm of DLA Piper, located at 444 West Lake Street, and along with my partner, Mariah DeGrino, I represent the applicant, LPC Chicago LLC. I also want to introduce our project team. We have Paul Apollonio, the Managing Director of Development with LPC, Angela Spadoni and Juan Robles with BKL Architects. Also with us are available for questions is Louie Abuna with KLOA, the traffic consultant. As James said, the subject property is located at the intersection of North, Clybourn, and Halsted Streets. They surround the site on three sides. And it's currently zoned PD number 834. We're requesting an amendment to that plan development to allow the development of a new residential tower in the location of a currently vacant, formerly bank building. It's the portion of the site that fronts on Clybourn. I'm sorry, I'm having just a moment here. The building has long been vacant, so part of the benefit of this project is that it will reactivate a portion of this intersection. The remainder of the site, though, has existing and well-functioning commercial space. I'm just going to turn it over to Angela now so that she can go to what you all are really interested in, which is the architecture.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Very excited about the design of this project, and so I'll walk you through kind of what got us there and how the plans are working this morning. Again, you're seeing it in overall building form just to get yourself oriented on the site, and then we'll start walking through some of the details next. So as the design evolved, the site is constrained and fairly tight, so we had a form that we worked with that we were really excited about kind of carried through. The biggest change as we worked through with DPD was to the ground floor. Again, it's a tight site. The majority of the ground floor is retail. In the lobby, we have minimal mechanical. We actually moved some of the mechanical to the second floor due to the site constraints, and then our loading as well. But you can kind of see the form stayed the same. We changed the massing a bit and then worked with DPD on the ground floor. This is the existing site plan, so the existing vacant building that is there now. Thank you. And then the next slide shows the proposed tower footprint on that site as well. So not much of a different footprint to what is there now. This is the view from the north at the building. And then this is the proposed site plan with landscaping. The majority of the change that we're doing to the landscaping is what we're calling the patio area. That is between, yep, right there, the existing retail and our proposed building. Again, the ground floor plan constrained, so we're wanting to maximize retail and activation along Clybourn and Halsted. We're also having the lobby kind of enter off that patio, making sure that there's a lot of visibility on the site. And then minimal mechanical, as I mentioned, on the ground floor and loading, and some of that mechanical you'll see on the second floor plan. And then I want to mention that we do have a specified bike path into our bike parking coming off that inner drive. Additionally on this, something that's really great and unique about this site is we did not have to add any additional curb cuts to this site. We are using the existing Wheat Street only into the internal drive that's already present. So for pedestrian safety, there's no additional curb cuts at all, and even loading and vehicular drop-off should be happening within that internal drive. Second floor, again, mentioned that we had to move most of our mechanical up there to service the building. It has to be there, but we still tried to hold active uses along that corner, that visible corner of Halsted and Clybourne. Thank you. Level 3 is amenity level, and additionally, this is where our bike parking is happening. So again, there's that elevator that's highlighted as a double access elevator so that bikes can come directly in and access the 396 1-to-1 bike parking ratio on this site. Something that you will not see in this proposal is the parking, because that is, as mentioned, is in the existing parking garage, which is so great, and we're so excited about that. We don't have a huge parking podium on this project. The building, as you saw in the renderings, is elegantly coming down to the ground and holding that form. So excited about that. This is our typical residential plan. As you can see, that unique form is going to offer really beautiful views for the residents, as well as a very slender, unique shape for the building. And then we do have a top floor. The 37th floor is an additional amenity floor with the pool facing the city and the sun, activating that top of the building. And then again, this is the roof plan with the landscaping shown as well, really focused on that patio area. And we also opened up the building to the south. You can see how there's larger open space along North and, Clybourne and Weed as well. Our building elevations here, you're just seeing the very narrow east and west elevations are very similar, as are the south and north, pointing out that there is really no backside to this building, which is so important because it is so visible from all aspects, all directions. Programmatic section, which I sort of already touched on. Our ground floor is very active uses, minimal mechanical, move to the second floor with a bit of amenity on the third and top 37th, and then the residential program in between. And then this is a view from the southwest. You're just seeing that really unique shape to the building, the very slenderness of this form, again, coming straight to the ground, which we're so excited about. And then the detail here, we worked pretty diligently on this, and with DPD, we've really felt strongly about leaving that masonry podium responding to the punched opening of the neighborhood. And then it is a metal and glass building as you go up. And we, it's maybe hard to see, but I know you have the presentation. The profile of the metal is reminiscent of the building form as well. It also has an angle to it, will reflect shadow differently, and really give the building a very rich feeling. And then this is just talking about some of those design guidelines that we thought about, safety, eyes on the street, activating, like I had talked about, Clybourne, Halsted, and then also building orientation and massing. It's a tight site, but slender and just really not having a backside to the structure. And then for landscaping, we do have Matt here if there are questions, but I'll present. Again, the focus was really on redesigning this open plaza that's not very utilized right now, and we really felt that placing our lobby entrance off of that plaza is really going to activate that. It will be adequately lit for safety. And then additionally, we added some outdoor space along Weed as well, just kind of opening the site and responding to both sides. We did pull in the building along that patio, so there is a bit of an overhang as well as the internal street, just kind of letting there be more room for pedestrian flow and entrance into the building. These are some of the inspiration images, more of a hardscape with kind of the trees sprinkled throughout, some seating elements, again, some unique lighting, uplighting the trees, and maybe some bench lighting as well. And then these are the building materials, which I did talk about a bit in the renderings, but again, the modular brick for the podium up into a glass and metal panel building, stone at the base. Our sustainability strategy is shown. We will be reaching the required 100 points through the Green Globe 3 globes, charging stations, and 80% waste diversion. And then storm water management, we will be designed to comply with the code and meet all the requirements that are required there. And then transportation, traffic, and parking circulation. Again, this is such a transit-oriented site, which is so great. We are almost on top of the CTA. So very safe using our, the existing crosswalk to enter our building. Bikes, again, they can come around the back and get in. And then again, for vehicular, utilizing both of the existing curb cuts, no additional curb cuts on the site. And then the traffic study everyone has as well. But again, this is such a transit-oriented site. Our parking is minimal in the existing garage, and we don't foresee this bringing much traffic in this area. I'm going to hand it back over to Paul. Thank you, everyone.
Sure, sure. Yes, as Angela said, the site is served by both the Red Lines North Clybourne stop and by bus lines on Halsted and North Avenue. In addition, there was a traffic study conducted by KLOA that CDOT has approved, and also a travel demand management plan that was recommended and the developer will adopt. Well, yes, I will. One of the things that Angela touched on that I do think is worth mentioning again is that we're using the existing parking structure. And that parking structure now is a non-accessory public parking garage in part. And one of the benefits of this project is that we will eliminate that. It will be all accessory parking to, again, reduce congestion. One issue of particular concern to the community and to Alderman Hopkins, separate and apart from this project, is general traffic management in the North Avenue corridor. Our project, as mentioned, will include measures to alleviate congestion at the site by virtue of eliminating an accessory parking garage. We also will implement GPS management to direct rideshare companies to use the entrance to the residential, which is on the service lane, which is to the eastern portion of the site, as Angela described. So all traffic deliveries and other traffic will be directed to that area. We also could potentially have no standing and no parking signs to limit standing on both Clybourne and Halsted frontages. But CDOT and the Department of Finance are planning and will implement a Smart Street pilot program for automated enforcement of traffic violations. And that'll cover a much broader region as described on this slide, but it should also provide additional benefits. Yeah. With respect to affordable housing, the developer's plan is to have the full 20% built on site as part of the project. We will, of course, be seeking the Affordable Illinois benefit under the state statute, but that will require a low affordability community ordinance. And I think the demographics would suggest that this location qualifies for that. Next slide. The MBE-WBE strategy, the developer will seek to meet all of the city's objectives with respect to MBE-WBE participation and local hiring, and will seek some technical support from a third party to increase participation and to achieve those goals. The estimated project cost is approximately $175 million. Public benefits would include 500 construction jobs and 14 new permanent jobs at completion, which actually could be greater depending on what the commercial user is in the ground floor. Last, I would just like to thank the Department of Planning and Development, CDOT, and the other city departments that reviewed this application, along with Alderman Hopkins and his staff for their cooperative work on this project. And we would respectfully request this commission's positive recommendation for approval of the PD, and our team is available for any questions that any of you may have. Thank you. Back to James.
For the record again, my name is James Gwinner with the Department of Planning and Development. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that the proposal would be appropriate for the following reasons. The proposed development is in compliance with the PD standards and guidelines. It complies with guidelines of the North Branch Framework Plan, promotes economically beneficial development patterns, and incorporates a high level of sustainable features. It is designed to reinforce urban features in the surrounding area. It includes a level of amenities appropriate to the nature and scale of the project. It promotes safe and efficient circulation of pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles, and promotes transit, pedestrian, and bicycle use. Please refer to my staff report for further details on this project and the plans identified here today. Based on the foregoing, the zoning administrator recommends that the application for the establishment of the plan development and zoning map amendment be approved and forwarded to the City Council on zoning landmarks and building standards as such. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Brumfield is now in attendance. We do have one speaker signed up to speak on this item, Mr. Butler Adams.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Butler Adams. I am in favor of this proposal. I got a chance to tune into the community meeting back in December. There wasn't that much pushback. There's always some pushback regarding traffic, but that's kind of how it is in the city in general. With this being right on top of the red line, I think it's very good for transit-oriented development. Also, the fact that the area at one time, and we can look at this because there's a lot of plans for the north and Clybourne area and further north on Clybourne. At one time, there was a train stop for the Brown Line at Halsted Street, so maybe there can be a look at bringing that back. Also, along with the Elston Clybourne bus, I think was a Route 41, at one time went past that area as well. So in order to help mitigate some of the traffic issues and concerns, perhaps looking at reinstating those routes and maybe rebuilding that transit stop would help the city as a whole. It's kind of interesting because there are a few big projects in this ward, the second ward. There's a project just east for Old Town, and none of those people are here to complain about this project because it's outside of their small bubble. I think about the city as a whole, so I'm here all the time. In terms of BKL, this is one of the nicer projects you all have designed in the city as of late. I follow a lot of the stuff going on here, and as somebody who gives architecture tours on the river, you all have a pretty big project proposed for Lakeshore East. I believe it's Site I, about 950 feet unbuilt as of now, but that's very nice. And this is very nice. You don't have a whole lot of balconies everywhere on your facade. The eye kind of draws right up the building, and it's a nice design. I hope to see more projects like this, not only in the city as a whole, but along transit. So I hope to see this happen, and good luck. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Do the commissioners have any questions of the staff or the applicant? Commissioner Brumfield?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a very interesting building, very tight site constraints you're working with. I do commend you on how you actually solved this from an architectural standpoint. Not a question, but more of a comment to the architects. It would have been nice to see a typical floor plate from a residential standpoint, given that you have, I think, 67% of your units one bedrooms, and you have very sharp edges on those triangle cuts. So it would have been nice to see how you would have kind of performed those gymnastics and solving the one bedrooms, or how the typical floor plan lays out. So it's not a question, just more of a comment. It would have been nice to see this in the package. We know that you're capable of solving it. Just curious to see it.
Commissioner Lasplata, followed by Commissioner Piñeiro.
Hey, thank you very much. I just wanted to say that you all set the bar high right out of the gate for the start of this meeting. I really feel in this presentation, in this project, there's a lot of questions and issues that have come up with the commission over the past year that we see reflected in this presentation. I really love and appreciate the incorporation of bird-friendly design. Commissioners, you might know there was an introduction of a resolution yesterday in council where we're going to be holding a hearing on what that design concept means for the city as a whole. Excited about that. Really appreciate, again, the pedestrian impact of that, both on the pedestrian level, but also that we're not seeing more curb cuts, particularly on one of the first protected bike lanes in Chicago. That Clybourne bike lane, very useful. It has a high utility. It's a great design. The way you move with that design, fantastic. To see a development, I think we were looking at 26 units at 30% AMI in terms of this development. That is some real income grading there. Love it. Love what you're bringing forward here. It's a response to, I think, a lot of the needs that we face both in Lincoln Park and across the city. And my thanks to you all on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Is this working?
No, yeah, now it is.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Great presentation and very interesting, great project, actually. But I'm very familiar with the area, and I know that traffic is a serious concern and has been an issue for, building up over the last 20 plus years in the area since the redevelopment of that area. And I would love to hear a little bit more, Mr. Shader. Thank you very much for getting a little bit into the details of all the discussions with CDOT and so forth. But maybe if Mr. Bruno, maybe, or somebody from the traffic consultant can get a little bit deeper into how we're going to address, because nearly 400 units in a corner that's already very, very busy. We're going to need to do some serious work related to that.
Louis Abuna is coming up to.
Okay,
address
thank
the
you.
Traffic study and the travel demand
Thank
management
you.
plan.
Thank you very much. And if you can also address the dynamics that are at ride sharing, delivery and so forth, which can also create a very
Sure, no
serious
problem.
situation.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Louis Abuna with KLOA. So as indicated earlier, this is a transit served location. It's got excellent proximity to public transportation, both the L station and the buses in the area. The other unique thing about this development is it's utilizing existing parking that is currently being used as non-accessory, both for public as well as monthly parkers. So what's gonna happen as a result is you're gonna be a reduction in the trip generation because of the utilization of public transportation. And based on census data in the area, we anticipate up to 60 to 65% of the future residents will not use their vehicle to travel to and from work or other destinations. They'll be using the train, walking, biking, working from home, and so forth. So that's one huge benefit of this site. The other benefit is, again, going back to this issue of non-accessory parking that's currently used by outside users, there's going to be a net reduction in terms of amount of traffic that will be generated. So their site is already generating traffic using the existing curb cuts on Clybourne and North Avenue. That traffic will be removed and will be adding traffic. So it'll be a net increase, but it's not going to be a 100% increase. We anticipate that perhaps 30 to 35% of the traffic that will be generated by the residents is already generated by the site. So that's another reduction in the amount of traffic that will be generated. Nevertheless, there will be an increase based on our analysis and confirmed by CDOT. Our increase is going to be very small increments. We're looking at perhaps less than 1% increase in traffic at the major intersections that will be impacted. So it's really not going to be, from a daily basis, not going to be perceived by the drivers in the area. The site has currently access on North Avenue that is restricted, so cars cannot make a left out. So that kind of help reducing conflicts. We're going to maintain that. The access on Clybourne is wider today, so we're going to narrow it at the request of CDOT. So instead of 3 lanes wide, it's going to be 2 lanes wide. So that's going to help with the conflict with pedestrians and bicyclists on Clybourne Avenue. So I think overall, on the face of it, it seems like this development will be a big traffic impact generator. But like I said, for the reasons I stated earlier, we believe is going to be a low impact and can really be accommodated by the street system. There are other measures that we are implementing as part of the travel demand management, in terms of car sharing, transit information, carpooling, and bike storage and bike repair facilities and the like, again, to really encourage the future residents and steer them towards using alternative modes of transportation and not rely on their vehicles.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Very much. Can somebody also elaborate on the ride share in one of the diagrams, help us understand how the traffic is going to take place around?
Internal drive.
So the plan, the entrance to the lobby is not facing Clybourne or Halsted, right? It's off that inner patio. So the plan is for the Uber drivers to use that inner drive. And I think with street markings and some of the stuff that Louis is doing, that should, obviously people can do what they will, but through street marking and what's that? And the GPS management, thank you, as well. The plan is for all of that Uber pickup and drop off to be happening off of that internal drive.
What is the GPS management thing?
So essentially what, Uber and Lyft, for example, they offer for business accounts, you can specify the locations where you want the drop-offs and pickups occur. It's like, this happens with large events and music events and so forth, where you designate areas where you want the pickup and drop-offs occur. This could be done for, this type of use as well, so that when the Uber drivers, pull up the location, it's going to direct them to go internal to the property to do the drop-offs and pickups.
Oh, I see.
And there'll be signage on site to direct them. I mean, you're going to get stray
Yes.
drivers every once in a while that they don't want to go inside and they drop off on curbside. We're going to obviously discourage that. And the Smart Road program, hopefully when it gets rolled out in the future, can help mitigate some of these issues of cars stopping and blocking through traffic, bike lanes, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are residents of this building, so I think through building management and through, repeat use, that these residents will also learn in time that, the location of their drop-off and pickup and deliveries and so forth should be all occurring on site as opposed to the, street frontages.
Thank you for elaborating on that. Really appreciate
And
it.
Commissioner, if I could just add a couple of things, just to emphasize the one thing that both Lou and Angela pointed out is that when Angela was talking about pedestrian movement over by Weed and Lou was mentioning the lanes, there are 3 lanes, right where Mariah is pointing right now today. So that sidewalk that you see is not a current condition. That will be added to create additional pedestrian space and to reduce
Oh,
motor
interesting.
vehicle space. I also think that there's Brian Pellrine from the Alderman's office is here and may want to comment on this particular issue, because I know obviously traffic is an issue for that office, but either now or whenever.
Yeah, I
Sure.
know Commissioner Carney is now in attendance too. He wants to comment. So between the two of you, if you would like to address some of this questions and comments, Commissioner Carney first.
Yes, thank you. I guess if you could add me to that, I'm in attendance
Yeah.
as well. So I just wanted to flag a couple things. One, what is reflected in their presentation about the Smart Streets pilot is accurate. And that is a project that we are very interested in and working collaboratively with CTA and Department of Finance on. We do think that is going to be successful and helpful in a lot of ways in a lot of parts of the city, including up on the boundary there where this parcel is included. But I do want to commend the developers for their work in collaborating with CDOT, because while the Smart Street pilot, I think, is a step in the right direction, we do need the ongoing collaboration with developers and those to, like what they were just talking about with the GPS. The deliveries, the Uber Eats drivers, the FedEx, we can do a lot of great things, but they really can clog up our key routes in the city. And by being creative and doing things like they're doing to really direct as much as possible, this development works because they have that delivery and drop off in the behind there, if you will. That really makes a difference. So we appreciate their working with us and collaborating to make that happen, because I think that is going to make this a success. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. If somebody from Hopkins' office could comment on it.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Brian Pellrine, for the record, Development Director for Alderman Hopkins, here to speak on his behalf. As everybody has alluded to, traffic is one of the major concerns at this location that the Alderman has. The North Avenue corridor is the most important connection between the lakefront neighborhoods of the Second Ward and the Kennedy Expressway. Corridor intersects with Clybourne and Halsted right at this project site, where there is also a crucial North and Clybourne Red Line station and popular retail such as the Apple Store. Current traffic conditions are difficult, to say the least. The addition of traffic from this project has nearby residents very concerned. Accordingly, Alderman Hopkins would like to thank the developer for engaging a traffic consultant at his request. The report has a number of good recommendations for mitigation of traffic, and they need to be implemented. The most important of these, which we've talked about and you heard from Commissioner Carney on, is the Smart Streets pilot. Despite consistent and excellent enforcement work by the 18th District Police, drivers regularly stop in traffic lanes at these locations to run into a store or do pickup and drop off, causing a bad traffic situation to be even worse. While this is an existing condition that is not the developer's fault, a major community benefit of this project should be in assisting with the mitigation of that issue. That being said, Alderman Hopkins supports this proposal and asks for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Commissioner Pinheiro wanted to close out his remark.
Yeah, I just wanted to close out by saying thank you very much, everyone, for addressing the issue, Commissioner, and from Alderman Hopkins' office, addressing the issue, critically important and so forth. But to be honest with you, it seems like a phenomenal project in a corner that really needs it. It's going to activate a corner that's a wonderful project. So thank you for addressing a critical part of at least my concern related to traffic.
Thank you. Commissioner Dowell?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chairman. First, I want to comment on the architecture. If I had to find an adjective to describe it, I'd use the word sleek. It looks very nice. Um, I had a question regarding the affordable housing. I appreciate the attention to the 40% and the 30% of AMI. When I look at your apartment layout, your studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, you don't have 3 and 4 bedrooms, so you're not really appealing to large families. Can you explain to me the rationale for how you determine what income levels are going into certain, it looks like you're putting all of your 30% in 1 and 2 bedrooms, none in the studios, and all of your 80% and over and under AMI in studios and 1 bedrooms. Just to understand the rationale for how you broke down the apartments.
Sure, Commissioner Dowell, thank you. The way that we consulted with DOH on it, it is really intended to get to the weighted average of 60%. That's where they are today. That distribution could obviously change. The basis for this is really what they think they can market today. So beyond that, DOH provides a spreadsheet, a way to go. They use a model through which we can get to the 60%. It's sort of targeted, but to be honest, at this point in the process, it's not fully targeted and fully baked to the market yet.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. When I think of this area, and I don't get out of my ward very much, but when I think of this area, I think of a lot of students and the DePaul students and people just getting out of school that may need housing that can't afford, that probably would fall within these income levels. Are
To
you
that
all
point, it's
thinking about
possible
that?
that there could be more units at those sizes. You're absolutely right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? So then I think we're ready for a motion. Do I have a motion on a proposed rezoning of the business plan development number 834 submitted by LPC Chicago LLC for the property generally located at 749 through 757 West North Avenue, 1551 through 1557 North Halsted Street, 1555 through 1569 North Clybourne Avenue, and 732 through 754 West Wheat Street, finding that it meets the requirements for approval.
So moved, Commissioner Laspada.
Thank you, Commissioner Laspada. Do I have a second motion? And thank you, Commissioner Boatright. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright? Thank you. Commissioner Brooks? Thank you. Commissioner Brumfield? Thank you. Commissioner Carney? Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dowell? Thank you. Commissioner Escareño? Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Cadaquia? Thank you. Commissioner Laspada?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons? Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yes.
Thank you. And I have a recusal for Commissioner Tillman. And that is it. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No, I was like, I today is listed as D2. A proposed amendment to residential business plan development 1480 submitted by 1140 West Erie LLC for the property generally located at 1140 West Erie Street. The applicant proposes to amend Plan Development 1480 to allow animal services excluding shelter, boarding, kennel, and stables. Financial services excluding payday loan and pawn shop and consumer repair laundry as permitted uses. This is item 22476, and it's in the 27th Ward. Omar will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, my name is Omar Smailobegovic with the Department of Planning and Development. The applicant, 1140 West Erie LLC, is here today to request approval of an amendment to Plan Development 1480. The applicant proposes to amend the plan development statements to allow animal services, financial services, and consumer repair and laundry as allowed uses, excluding animal shelters, boarding kennels, stables, payday loan, and pawn shops. The site is located in the Westtown community area. Westtown is characterized by a mix of multifamily, commercial, and mixed-use land uses, and a significant proportion of its residents commute to work via transit, bicycle, or by walking. The project at 1140 West Erie Street is located at the intersection of West Erie Street and North Ogden Avenue, just south of Interstate 9094. The site is within walking distance of the Chicago Avenue CTA Blue Line station, as well as the number 56 and 66 CTA bus routes. The adjacent zoning districts are M1-2, RM-5, and B2-5. Land use in the immediate vicinity are primarily residential with some mixed-use commercial and the adjacent expressway. Now I'd like to pass it off to Mariah DeGrino with DLA Piper to go over the details of the proposed amendment.
Thank you, Omar. Good morning. For the record, my name is Mariah DeGrino with DLA Piper. We represent the applicant in this matter, which is an affiliate of the Bond Companies. I'm joined today by Damon Dance from Bond. As Omar mentioned, this is the zoning and land use context for the site itself. The slide shown here is the site plan. This is a project that was previously approved and was built and delivered back in 2023. The change today seeks merely to amend the uses that are allowed to allow for a broader scope of retail uses at the site. The site plan will be unchanged by the amendment. The retail entrance is located on Ogden. As I mentioned, the building was previously approved by the Plan Commission and found to meet the PD standards. Landscape plan also previously approved and remains unchanged with this change that is being requested today. The property is subject to the near northwest side plan, and many aspects of the project fit within the goals of that plan, most notably the last bullet point you see, creating a commercial uses to meet the needs of the neighborhood. As I mentioned, the project was previously approved in September of 2020 following a robust community process led by Alderman Burnett and neighbors of River West. The project team also met with neighbors of River West again at their July meeting to present the use amendment and received favorable support from that group. The following slides will show the building floor plans, which again remain unchanged. This is the first floor plan with parking accessed off of Erie and a dog run along May. The commercial space that is the subject of this amendment is shown on Ogden. This slide shows the second floor, which includes a residential amenity deck and typical residential floor plans above. Oops. And finally, this is the top floor with additional residential amenity space. The total project cost was approximately $40 million and created 400 construction jobs. The developer partnered with Communities Empowered through construction and held job fairs as part of their efforts to engage with MBE-WBE contractors and subcontractors. We respectfully request your favorable recommendation of this amendment. And at this point, I will turn the presentation back to DPD to conclude.
Again, for the record, Omar Smailobegovic from DPD. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the project materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that the proposed additional uses would be appropriate for the following reasons. The development would continue to be in compliance with the applicable standards and guidelines of the Chicago zoning ordinance. The development will continue to be compatible with the character of the surrounding area, and public infrastructure facilities and city services will continue to be adequate to serve this development. Please refer to the staff report for further details regarding this project and the plans identified here today. Based on the foregoing, it is the recommendation of the zoning administrator that this application to amend Plan Development 1480 be approved and forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Cicho Lopez is now in attendance. Do the commissioners have any comments or questions of the staff or the applicant? Not seeing any hands raised. Alderman Burnett was not able to attend, but we do have a letter of support for this item. Again, if we don't have any comments or questions, so Commissioner Lyons?
Good morning. Just curious what prompted you, or are there particular retail that you're looking to do currently, or do you have occupants chosen for the change?
Hi, good morning. My name is, for the record, my name is Damon Dance on behalf of the applicant 1140 W Erie LLC and bond companies. So this is a retail space. It's approximately 1,360 square feet. We've had it out to the market since we opened the building back in 2023. In the building, we actually have a dog run as an amenity feature as well. We're probably around 30% or so in terms of pet ownership within the building. So it fits along the lines of an amenity, an additional amenity, neighborhood amenity for the residents. But really, it was really driven, frankly, by the market and a need for pet grooming facility and pet retail space.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? If not, then I'll go ahead and ask for a motion. Do I have a motion on a proposed amendment to Residential Business Plan Development 1480 submitted by 1140 West Erie LLC for the property generally located at 1140 West Erie Street, finding that it meets the requirements for approval? Thank you, Commissioner Piñeiro, followed by Commissioner Kadaika. Thank you. I will go ahead and do roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright? Thank you. Commissioner Brooks? Thank you. Commissioner Brumfield? Thank you. Commissioner Carney? Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dow? Thank you. Commissioner Escareño? Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Kadakia, can you confirm? Thank you. Commissioner La Spata?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons? Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cicho Lopez? We lost him. And Commissioner Tillman? Thank you. Motion passes. The next item today is listed as D3, a proposed amendment to Residential Business Plan Development number 1512, submitted by Fulton Grounds Owner LLC for the property generally located at 201 North Racine. The applicant proposes to rezone the site from RBPD number 1512 to RBPD number 1512 as amended. The applicant proposes to amend the boundaries of the existing plan development to remove the property south of Lake Street, currently sub-area A. The remaining property, currently sub-area B, permits the construction of a 222-foot, 6-inch mixed-use building with 179 dwelling units, ground floor commercial space, 29 accessory parking spaces, 179 bicycle parking spaces, and accessory and incidental uses. All other bulk and uses of the existing RBPD 1512 would remain unchanged. The development's overall FAR will be 7.5. This is item 22400, and this is also in the 27th ward. Max will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Max Lyon. I'm a Central Region Planner for the Department of Planning and Development and the lead planner for this proposal. Today, I'm joined by representatives of the project team for a proposed amendment to Plan Development Number 1512, generally located at 201 North Racine. The proposal would amend the boundaries of the previously approved PD and remove the south property south of Lake Street. The remaining property permits the construction of a 222.5-foot tall mixed-use building with 179 dwelling units, ground floor commercial space, 29 accessory parking spaces, and 179 bike parking. All other bulk and uses of the existing RBPD number 1512 would remain unchanged, and the overall FAR would be 7.5. No, we're good. I got the clicker. Thank you, though. Michael, you whispering in his ear. Come on. Okay. The community or the proposal site is located in the near west side community area of the 27th ward. This area contains the West Loop and Fulton Market districts and has seen an influx in recent years of residential, retail, and commercial development. As of 2020, this neighborhood has over 62,000 people, with 42% of residents below the age of 34. Median household size is 2.2, and the median household income for the area is $83.5K annually. PD 1512 was originally approved by the Plan Commission back in 2021 and originally contained two sites, both north and south of Lake Street, shown here all outlined in red. The proposed amendment would retain everything on the northern site to the north of Lake Street, while removing the southern site from the boundaries, allowing it to become its own new PD. This aerial shows the two sites in the context of the Fulton Market area, looking east towards the loop. The site on the left would be the only property remaining within the amended PD. The site qualifies as a transit-served location and is located just over 1,000 feet from the CTA Morgan pink and green line stop. Photos of the current site conditions show the vacant and unused lot north of Lake Street L tracks, which will be improved with the new construction of the amended PD. And because of its location, the proposal is subject to several planning documents adopted by City Council and approved by the Plan Commission, including the West Loop Design Guidelines and the Fulton Market Innovation District Plan. The West Loop Design Guidelines establishes a set of building guidelines to prioritize the central area characteristics of employment, transportation, cultural, and residential center for the city, while maintaining the urban character and scale that has made it so attractive. The FMID plan focuses specifically on the Fulton Market corridor and encourages mixed uses and incomes, improved transportation access for all modes, and the enhancement of historical and cultural elements of the community. With that, I'll turn over the presentation to the applicant's attorney, Michael Esger, and the design team for further details.
Thank you, Max. For the record, Michael Esger from the law firm of Acosta Esger on behalf of the applicant, Fulton Grounds owner. And with me today on the applicant team is Brian Goldberg and from LG Development, and Gabe Leo, from the designer from LG Development, as well as Louis Abuna from KLOA, our traffic consultant. And as Max mentioned, this is a technical amendment to reduce the boundaries. There's no other changes proposed to the existing building. And the process that we went through in the 27th ward with Alderman Burnett was a thorough review by everyone. We were previously approved, as Max said, in 2021. And then we came back to the city at the beginning of the year to file a new application, went through the community process with the WCA, with Nowell, the neighbors, and had a full community meeting, which was fairly well received. And that kicked off the official process with coming here today to present to you. The building, again, on the left side or the north side was previously approved, and we have no changes to it. It's a thinner building. It has 179 residential units, 29 parking spaces. The site plan allows for an alley to the north that has our access for parking and loading, and commercial along Lake Street, and lobby entrances along Racine. The building sections show that the height is remained as approved at 222 feet, approximately. We have elevations that show a setback off of May Street, which is shown here to the right side or east side of the property. And then you're seeing the elevations of the tower, a thin expression that was favored by the process last time around, and certainly by the commission and city council. The ghosted images were the previously approved that it's actually part of our next presentation that are not that are omitted from this current proposal, this technical amendment. And here's a good shot of the building looking southwest. Ground floor images showing we've worked closely with CDOT and with DPD to navigate the issues with the elevated tracks and the ground floor experience for pedestrians. And the traffic study shows that the infrastructure area can handle the traffic. It also notes, though, that because of the volume of activity, that there's a traffic signal warranted on Lake and Racine, and that was part of our original approval. And there's certainly a commitment by the team to provide that new traffic signal as part of this proposal on Lake and Racine, along with the pedestrian countdown timer. So that will be taken into account. We also worked with CDOT closely with this whole study and going through that warrant study with KLOA. In terms of our affordable, that commitment has not changed either. We are doing 20% on-site per the ARO, and we have worked with Department of Housing for this current proposal to make sure that we were reworking everything so that we have an average of AMI of 60%. There's units spread from 40 to 80% mixed throughout the building. And in addition, this project is in the Fulton Market District, and so it just as previously committed to, the team is committed to working with the city and Department of Housing to come up with some solutions to see if we can't get to that 30% commitment, which would be an additional 18 units. This team has gone through and talked to the city about this before, and we're looking forward to those discussions in the future when we're ready to move forward with the project. Similarly, we commit to certainly meeting the goals of the city. This team has worked with Communities Empowered for Construction before, Rachel Ivy and her team, and Alderman Burnett has helped us navigate this in the past. We seek to meet the 26, 6, and 50% city residents, as well as the 2% local hiring. And the general contractor is also part of that strategy. The project facts, this is a $91 million project. It has approximately 300 construction jobs. There's a neighborhood contribution from the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund of 290,000. Excuse me, the total NOF bonus is 290,000 with a local contribution of 29,000 and an annual tax contribution increase to $1 million. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Max to conclude the presentation.
Thank you, Michael. Again, my name is Max Lyon with the Department of Planning and Development. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the project materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that the project is appropriate for the following reasons. It's consistent with plans adopted by the Plan Commission or approved by the City Council, including the West Loop Design Guidelines and Fulton Market Innovation District Plan. It complies with floor area standards and zoning district applicable to the subject site and is appropriate to the downtown district. And it promotes economically beneficial development patterns that are compatible with the character of existing neighborhoods. Based on the foregoing is the recommendation of the zoning administrator and the Department of Planning and Development that this application for an amendment to Plan Development number 1512 be approved, and the recommendation to City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Buildings be passage recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. We do have one speaker signed up to speak on this item, Mr. Butler Adams.
For the record, my name is Butler Adams. I didn't have anything special to say about this project. It came before Plan Commission again back in 2021. I spoke in favor of it at that time. This is LG. They've done several projects in the area, including Arthur on Aberdeen, about a block and a half, 2 blocks to the east. So I'm kind of familiar with what they've done in the area. One of my only concerns is that when the Fulton Market Innovation District was approved and talked about, one of the things that I said is that because the city did not own any land in that area north of Lake Street, it was going to be very, very hard to get green space in any type of parks. And that's kind of what's happening over there. Going to have this one small pocket park that the Trammell Crow is doing at like 1114 Carroll, and that's about it. Otherwise, some little plazas here and there. And I think this is an opportunity to have actually a park at this location because LG owns this parcel and a parcel just south across Lake Street. So if all these units were moved south of Lake Street to the next project you all are going to see, this could have been a green space. That's all I'm saying. Otherwise, whatever. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Commissioner Lasplata, I know you wanted to make a comment on this.
Yeah, a question. So I'm fine with everything that's in front of us. I want to make sure I'm reading it right because it sounds like we're essentially deleting the development rights in the parcel south of here. I see all those buildings in gray. It feels like it reads like we're not. Noah's hand is up. Noah's clarifying something.
Yeah, that'll all be answered in just a moment, Alderman. So this was one PD with 2 sub areas. It's now going to be 2 PDs, one on the north, and the following project you're going to see in just a second will handle all your answers on the south.
There we go. There we go. Thank you, sir.
So, hold tight. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners on this item? No. And I know, again, Alderman Burnett is not here, but we do have a letter of support from him. I did have a small question on the percentages, because I see that there's local hiring of 2%. I don't think I've seen that before, or maybe I missed it from, is that specific to Alderman Burnett?
For the record, Noah Sranik again. So the 2% local hire is something that the developer is offering to the local residents, but it's not required by the executive order, or not asked for by the executive order. The 50% is just city hiring alone, but they've worked with Alderman Burnett, and that's something they're going to do for the ward.
So just specific to that ward, right?
For this
Local to the
project,
ward.
as an agreement with the alderman,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion. Do I have a motion on a proposed amendment to residential business plan development number 1512, submitted by Fulton Grounds Owner LLC for the property generally located at 201 North Racine, finding that it meets the requirements for approval? Thank you, Commissioner Boatright. Do I have a second? Commissioner Brooks, or thank you. That was almost in tune. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright. Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Thank you, Commissioner Brumfield. Thank you, Commissioner Carney. Thank you, Commissioner Castañeda.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Dowell. Thank you, Commissioner Escareño. Thank you, Commissioner Flores. Yes. Commissioner Gadakia. Thank you. Commissioner Lasplata.
Yes.
Thank you. I do have a recusal for Commissioner Lyons on this item. Commissioner Piñeiro.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Tillman. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, commissioners. Okay.
The next item today is listed as D4. A proposed residential business plan development submitted by Fulton Grounds Owner LLC for the property generally located at 170 North May. The applicant proposes to rezone the subject property from the previous designation of PD number 1512 to a new residential business plan development. This would permit the construction of a 450-foot building and a 315 building across two sub-areas, containing in total 667 dwelling units, ground floor commercial retail space, 509 accessory parking spaces, 667 bicycle parking spaces, and accessory and incidental uses. The development's overall FAR will be 11.5. This is item 22401, and this is also in the 27th Ward. Max Lyon will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone again. My name is Max Lyon, again, for the record. Central Region Planner for the Department of Planning and Development, lead planner for this proposal as well. This time I'm joined by representatives of the project team for a proposed plan development at 170 North May. This proposal would allow for the construction of a 450-foot tall building and a 315-foot tall building across two sub-areas, containing a total of 667 dwelling units, ground floor commercial space, 509 parking, 667 bicycle parking, with an overall FAR of 11.5. As with the recently reviewed site to the north, the proposal site is also located in the near west side community area of the 27th Ward. As of 2020, this neighborhood has over 60,000 people with a median household size of 2.2. This site is bounded by Randolph Street, May Street, Lake Street, and Racine Avenue. Several downtown and commercial zone sites surround this proposal, and the proposed underlying zoning of DX-7 is consistent with many other recently approved PDs nearby. The site was originally part of the PD 1512, which we just reviewed. So the PD 1512 amended boundaries are the ones on the left, and this new PD will be on the right. This project also qualifies as a TSL location and is located just over 1,000 feet from the CTA Green and Pink Line station at Morgan. Some contextual photos of the existing site conditions as they are today, showing the fenced and unoccupied proposal site. Its proximity to the Lake Street L tracks are visible in the top left corner as well. And then with regard to scale and architectural styles surrounding the area, these photos show the existing building frontages that are also located on the same block adjacent to the proposal site, which the proposed design attempts to contextually respect. The top two show frontages along Racine, while the bottom two show the existing frontages along Randolph. And because of its location, the proposal is also subject to the two planning documents that we recently covered in the last presentation, which are the West Loop Design Guidelines and the Fulton Market Innovation District Plan. The West Loop Design Guidelines prioritizes the central area characteristics, while the FMID plan focuses on the cultural uses and connectivity of the Fulton Market Corridor specifically. And with that, I'll turn over the presentation to the applicant's attorney, Michael Esger, and the rest of the design team for more details about the project's design.
Thank you, Max. Again, for the record, Michael Esger from the law firm of Acosta Esger. Good morning, commissioners. And with me on the project team again, we have the representative from the applicant, Brian Goldberg from LG Development, and Gabe Liehu. We also have Louie Abuna from KLOA, our project architect from BKL, Angela Spadoni, and we also have Matthew Strange from Confluence, the landscape designer. And with that, we'll jump in, and I'm sure Alderman Laspada will answer your questions now. We again went through, this was previously approved with a same underlying zoning of DX7. We've now come back with a pretty exciting new proposal that allows for two different phases in this project, a sub-area A and B. Sub-area A is to the east, and sub-area B is to the west along Racine. And it features a ground floor anchor of a grocery store that we're working on with apartments above. We went through the community process with Alderman Burnett during the spring and had our full community meeting on June 17th, was well received. And this is a context map that we've worked with the West Central Association. The Chamber of Commerce keeps a log that DPD asked them years ago to do to track, because Google Earth doesn't always show the context of this ever-changing area. So there's color-coded projects in green that have been approved and yellow that are proposed and in various stages of construction. And you can see ours outlined in red as how we fit into that context looking east. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Angela to talk about the architecture.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning. Angela Spadoni with BKL Architecture. Thank you. So I want to take you through how we arrived at the renderings you had seen earlier. We worked a lot on this massing. I think something I'm really proud about this design is just the way it differentiates itself against some of the other designs that you're seeing a bit repetitive in the West Loop or in Fulton Market specifically. We really worked to take that idea of stepping away from Randolph and building the building mass going north. And as you could see from left to right, we've really started to integrate that as you went north along May and didn't let the stepping just happen along Randolph, but let it break up the building also as you go north. So ending with the proposed massing you're seeing on the left. This is another view so that you could see phase 2, how we still wanted that language, even though it's not directly on Randolph, to still read as it's starting to be sculpted and step back away, get taller as we head north. So you're seeing both phase 1 and 2 in this view. And then this is an early concept design, again, responding to that idea of getting taller as we're going north, thinking about responding to that pedestrian scale along Randolph, setting the building back adequately off Randolph so you really feel when you're walking on the street as pedestrian, you feel the scale of the podium versus the building, as well as thinking about the L and kind of how we would respond to that as well and step back the building as, from there also. This is the existing site plan. Just to orient you, north is up, a lake is at the top of the screen, Randolph is along the south, and then Racine and May. We are the red property line, and then sub areas A, or phase 1, I'll say sometimes, and sub area B, phase 2. This is the proposed site plan. So you're seeing the proposed building on 170 North May, and then the proposed building on 175 North Racine, and how they're oriented on the site. We'll talk about landscape a little bit later in the presentation. This is the ground floor plan, very complex, lots happening here. One of the things we're most excited about in this project is the retail or grocer that we're planning on for this site. They had very specific area requirements that we had to really work with to achieve for them to make sure the store is functional and going to be a success. So letting that frontage come to Randolph along May, getting that adequate square footage without having any of the residential tower above interfering with that in terms of the core. You will also see the existing alley that is relocated and now extended through the site into a private area. That's a very important aspect for the function of the site, for the function of the loading of the retailer. We also have loading of the residential happening within that alley, but the garage entrance and exit for both the retail and the grocer will be off May for phase 1, but off the internal alley for phase 2. Originally wanted to keep all of that off the internal alley, but we just started overloading it, so we did have to get approval for that curb cut off May. The lobbies for the residential towers are shown in blue off of May and Racine, and then still trying to activate along Lake with some bike parking and smaller retail that can be successful along Lake. This is the second floor parking plan that will park both the grocer and the residents in phase 1 and then residents in phase 2. This is the elevations. You're seeing that stepping along Randolph. So this is the south elevation on Randolph. This is the east elevation on May. The west elevation along Racine. You're seeing both phases on these, and then the north elevation along Lake. And then the programmatic section showing where, that retail is along grade, the parking above, and then into the residential program. And then the north-south section as well. Our building materials, I'm going to talk about that more when we see the renderings, but we absolutely know that along Randolph, we need to be using brick. We need to be responding to that contextual punched opening, kind of detailed facade. And then as we go up into the towers, we're using a combination of metal and glass and different kind of extrusions and textures happening along the towers as well. And then we are showing stone for the base. We have a couple colors of metal panel that we're using on the podium and in the tower, so you're seeing those represented as well. This is some of the details. So because we really wanted to incorporate movement into the massing, we left some of the tower along Randolph a bit quieter, and the metal panel and glazing is actually flush in this portion to really let the movement of the tower speak. As we went to this middle portion, we designed in an extrusion that actually comes down to the ground, starts to break down the scale along May, and really interacts at a pedestrian scale as well. And then at the podium along Randolph, we used the masonry punched expression, really again responding to that the context of the neighborhood, the masonry punched opening, grounding that retail as the anchor of Randolph and May, and really wanting to break up this east elevation as you're a pedestrian walking north or south along May. So with that, as we go further north, we switch our material from masonry to metal. Now we're responding to more of the L tracks and the structure. We're putting some detail in there that we saw within the structure of the L track, responding to that, letting it kind of really speak to its environment as you move north and south along the site. This is a view from the southwest, so you can really see how these buildings are really formed and stepping back off of Randolph, and they have a little bit more movement than what you've been seeing more recently. A view from the northeast, so you're seeing that anchor podium along Lake responding with the metal design. And then the view from the southeast, it's showing that retailer, showing that presence along Randolph and how the building really forms and moves and steps back as you're going north. Again, a closer up view of this very important corner. And then this is a pedestrian context along May, looking at the residential entry that we've popped up and added some expression. You're kind of seeing that change of materiality, the lighter tower coming down and then bringing it into the darker podium. You're also seeing that private alley shown in the middle of there, and we have a better view of that here. We are looking for pedestrians to utilize this as well, so there is a separate pedestrian walkway. We've really widened it to be able to respond to all the functions that are happening. And one of the most, I think, exciting things about this alley is that we are going to try to coordinate with loading and also use it as an outdoor kind of community space for either the residential building to host or the grocer. And then here's a view from the northeast. You are looking again at a smaller retail along that corner, activating the street front. And then this is that phase 2 from the northwest, carrying a lot of the same architectural details that I went over on phase 1. And then again from the west, looking here. I'm going to let Matt from Confluence talk about the landscape.
Thanks, Angela. For the record, Matt Strange with Confluence, landscape architect. So just to speak a bit about the approach to the site design here, we really wanted to make this as pedestrian friendly a streetscape as possible, wrapping this entire development. Some of the key things we've done there is create bump outs at each of the corners of the site along Racine, along May, and along Randolph. And what that's doing is kind of shortening the pedestrian crossing distance as you're going from one corner to the other, bracketing that in some planting to make that feel a bit more friendly and safe. And then we've actually tucked in some seating areas as well into a couple of those bump outs with kind of a permanent built-in bench that a prospective retailer could bring some cafe seating up to and kind of activate that corner and have some outdoor seating space. One other key move we've made along Randolph there is currently there's angled parking running all up and down Randolph. And we worked on a similar design recently at 1234 West Randolph, where we've reclaimed that angled parking space for pedestrians. And so what we've done there is taken over that angled parking zone, added in some planting and some seating niches between, and then provided some kind of cafe space along the grocer, so that if they wanted to do either some, outdoor seating for cafes and that kind of thing, if they wanted to do any sort of small farmers market or that sort of thing, there's opportunities for different activity to happen along that sidewalk. And then what we're doing along Randolph as well is kind of picking up on the character of Randolph Street, which, as you know, has a lot of trees up and down it. There's medians. So we're kind of bringing some of the same character from that planting and that medians across the way into this outdoor seating space, and just having basically taking that space away from what would otherwise just be cars to activate that for pedestrians. And as Angela mentioned, we also have that alley kind of running through the middle of the site. And what we're doing there is creating kind of a special paving band that wraps the building underneath the overhang and kind of extends through to kind of clearly delineate pedestrian versus vehicular space and make that feel a bit safer. We're also using some narrow kind of FF&E planters along that space that can be reconfigured, as Angela mentioned, if they wanted to activate that alley for different kind of, community gatherings. Those can easily be moved around to kind of wall off the ends and allow that to change uses a bit. We also have incorporated bike parking throughout the design. We have some bike parking tucked within the overhangs of the building that you can see in the sort of special paving zones at the building. So you do have some covered bike parking as well as some bike parking out at within the public right of way incorporated into the streetscape. And then the planting itself at the streetscape, along Lake, we have trees that are centered on the L-track columns. And so those are more kind of columnar trees there to not interfere with the L-tracks. So just bringing in some vegetation and making that a more kind of pleasant pedestrian experience. And then trees as well along May, Racine, and Randolph that are kind of in compliance with the Chicago Landscape Ordinance, as planting along the ground or below the trees as well, just to improve the pedestrian walking experience. Okay. And then just some photos of the general character that we're imagining for this space. So the incorporation of art, as Angela mentioned, within that alley, we'd like to have a mural. The exact configuration and style here are not meant to be really prescriptive. The idea is that we'd engage with a local kind of artist to bring in some color and life and personality into that alleyway to make it feel a bit friendlier. You can see the photo at the bottom of the screen there of a similar planting configuration that was recently done along Lake Street, where more columnar trees are centered on those columns, just to, again, kind of make that feel like a friendlier pedestrian space, make it a more verdant space as people are walking through. And then mentioned earlier with the kind of bump out spaces at the corners, again, just improving the pedestrian experience as one is crossing from one intersection to the other, bracketing that in some green to make that feel a bit friendlier, and then incorporating in some built-in kind of permanent seating that a retailer could bring cafe seating up to and activate, but even in the absence of that, creates a nice place to sit along the sidewalk. Got a few views showing that. This is one of those bump outs with the seating that I mentioned built in. You can see the L-tracks here as well as the planting that would be incorporated to just really create a much more friendly pedestrian experience than what's out there today. This is along Randolph. As mentioned, this is where we're kind of reclaiming the angled parking for pedestrians. So where you see the trees is currently just angled parking. We're taking that over to create a space with trees and plantings and seating in between. Again, this is very much in keeping with what was recently approved at 1234 West Randolph, which is just on the street from here, to begin to carry some of that same language through to create this moment for pedestrians along the grocer. You can also see the planters that are up along the building. That would be more kind of movable, flexible planters that the retailer could use as needed for outdoor seating space. And then showing how that same thing could easily be converted if they wanted to do, say, a small farmer's market or fair or event. There's still enough space on the sidewalk to allow folks to walk by while kind of creating this clear space that is flexible for different events. And then this is Racine looking north. We do have some tree grates along there. You can also see the overhang within the building and how we're creating these special paving carpets kind of at the building entrance to delineate between public space and private space. And we'll have some bike parking kind of tucked within that overhang as well. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Angela.
Thank you, Michael. I have a couple more slides to get through. We did have our traffic impact study prepared by KLOA. We will be efficiently accommodating the traffic that this might bring to the area. And then just about the vehicular access, bike access, and pedestrian. The vehicular access plan is obviously coming off of May and Racine, again, utilizing that internal alleyway for a majority of the loading and vehicular entrance and exit, except for phase 1, where we will be using May for the entry and entrance exit of the garage. Bike parking, it's highlighted in blue in the middle diagram. So we do have bike rooms at grade in both phases. We have additional bike parking up in the garage, but there is bike access and parking provided there. And then just pedestrian access, again, adding that additional thoroughfare through the site, through that alley, not only having that for vehicular use, but also having that for a safe pedestrian path as well. And then you can see kind of the entrances, as I mentioned, to the residential lobbies off of May and Racine. Sustainability strategy, we will be hitting our 100 required points. We'll be doing that through Green Globes 2 globes. We will do the stormwater, EV charging stations, and waste diversion. And then we will be meeting our stormwater management requirement for code as well. So we have that here. And then I'm going to hand it back to Michael. So thank you, everyone.
Musical chairs. Again, Michael Esger for the record, and thank you, Angela. Yes, for the ARO, we've worked closely with the Department of Housing to come up with our mix of averaging 60%, and it's all 20% of the requirement is on site. That's 133 affordable units on site for this project, which we're certainly proud of, and we also have a partial payment for a fractional unit. The next slide talks about our school impact study. Because this is a new project in Fulton Market, these projects generally, because there's not a ton of school-age children, generate a significant benefit to the schools and parks. In this case, without the TIF extension, 34 million. And moving on, as we said in the last presentation, the commitment is certainly there for meeting the 26 MBE to 6% WB, 50% Chicago resident and 2% local hiring, working with Alderman Burnett, working with communities empowered through construction, which this team has done before. And the project cost is $300 million. We estimate 400 construction jobs, 200 permanent jobs, and then the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund contribution of $6.2 million. And locally, that's $626,000 with an annual tax contribution increased from about $500,000 to $4.2 million. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Max for conclusion.
Thank you, Michael. All right. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the project materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that this proposal is appropriate for the following reasons. It's consistent with plans adopted by the Plan Commission or approved by City Council, which includes the West Loop Design Guidelines and Fulton Market Innovation District Plan. It complies with the floor area ratio standards for the zoning district applicable to the subject property and is appropriate to the downtown district for the area. And it promotes economically beneficial development patterns that are compatible with the character of existing neighborhood around it. Additionally, this proposal has received a letter of support from the West Central Association Community Group and from Alderman Burnett of the 27th Ward. Based on the foregoing, it is the recommendation of the zoning administrator and the Department of Planning and Development that this application for a new plan development be approved, and the recommendation to City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards be passage recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. We do have Mr. Butler Adams signed up to speak on this item as well.
I'm back. So again, I'm in favor of this project. This, I believe, is the third time this has come before Plan Commission. It was originally 1150 West Lake, so it came before the Plan Commission, I think, back in February 2020. And again, in June of 2021, there have been several meetings on this project. One was in May 17th, 2021, and the most recent meeting was June 17th for this updated version. It's nice, like I said before, for the previous presentation, I wish that those units had been brought over to this project here so that that northern parcel north of Lake Street could have been green space. It's just, again, an idea to throw out there. The design is very nice. Again, this is BKL. So they've done several projects in this area. One on Morgan, they have a proposal at 1300 West Lake, and now this one. Again, when I look at these renderings, because of the balcony placement, for me, this design is not as nice as the very first one we saw on Clybourne because of the balconies. Kind of reminds me of the serrated edge of notebook paper, just kind of everywhere. Otherwise, I do think it's a nice project. Between the last time this was at Plan Commission and today, almost 120 units have been added to this project, and it's now going up to about 500 parking spaces. One of the disappointments for me is that a lot of these projects that I have spoken in favor of over the past 5 to 7 years in this area have really not tried to do any type of underground parking, and that's kind of unfortunate. And if you're gonna have this much parking, I wish that there was an attempt to kind of do some linear units to hide that parking, or if you're gonna build all this parking, perhaps maybe build your parking decks flat, so if the need never materializes, those decks can be converted to something else later. Otherwise, I think it's a pretty nice project, and I hope it gets approved. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Commissioner Laspada, did the presentation answer your previous question? Do you want to follow up on anything?
So I'll say that it answered the previous question, but I do have questions I'd like to ask. if that's
We'll
okay.
start with you then.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much. So, love the neighborhood. I found myself at Alhambra's Palace down the street twice in the past 2 weeks. I feel oddly quite familiar with the blocks that we're talking about right now. I really love the way it interplays with Randolph. Randolph has such a unique character, and to see that honored in what is presented here, I really applaud. I wanted to ask if you could go to the slide that shows the internal alleys and how it interplays with the grocery store. Because I know there's a lot of creative ways to do grocery store loading and unloading. I know we're about to hear about another one. But I'm trying to picture how the trucks maneuver in and out of this space. Is it possible to show that with like a laser pointer
We have
or?
a diagram beside
Yeah.
this. Oh, we had a. Oh, yeah, somewhere around here. a little bit.
So here comes the semi. It's like coming down Lake Street, I imagine.
Yeah, so they can come in now. The retail loading is shown as this dotted line. So it's just a lay-by. So there's no turning or like happening inside the alley. It goes in one way, it comes out the other.
Love it, love it. Okay,
Oh,
really? Yes,
where,
very
like,
much so.
The loading for the residential is more internal to the building, but those are smaller trucks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I have a, like an open space question / concern that is not, it is not unique to this development at all. But to continue to think about the experience of young people, children under 10 in the Fulton Market and broader West Loop community. I know that there's not a ton of them right now. I suspect that the developments we've approved over the past year and a half are going to add them, and trying to figure out how do we create those experiences. And I didn't even think about this until like 20 months ago, and now I have a little person who runs against walls like it's her job, and trying to figure out like how do we provide those spaces. I don't know what the answer is. I think there's a space in the future to think about like a West Loop Fulton Market open space plan to figure out where we put those OSIF dollars. Noah's got his hand up.
So we, as a department, we're actually looking at that now. So we are going to evaluate that, but we continue to, on every project, one of the criteria that we have for all of these is how they improve the public realm and what they can do to provide some areas that are programmed and meaningful rather than just, green space tucked against a wall, that it actually can be usable, can actually be, integrated with, not just put there as a afterthought. So, but its land values are very expensive, so it's hard for the city to have a project or a park in that area. So, but we are studying it. We hope to bring something back to plan commissioners at some point in the future.
Well aware of those land values, sir. I know it, I get it. I think there's a world where we end up vacating public way or something like that, but maybe there's creative ways, even like temporary before school, after school hours to utilize that like really beautiful covered alley space that you have right there. That's what drew my eye as a parent because it feels safe, protected. There's ways to utilize that for kiddo related purposes. So just something I wanted to flag, but overall it looks really fantastic and I appreciate the work that went into the project. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Piñeiro, followed by Commissioner Escareno.
Oh, no.
Next. Do we want to, you want to start?
Yeah, yeah, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just to expand on the commissioner, the comments made about open space. I think we've talked about this before, specifically in this area.
Do you want to speak closer?
Sorry, yes. So yes, just following up on the open space. I did have some just general questions on the layout of the greenery and the landscape plan. And questions for me are really around what is being identified as beautification that is adjacent to the building, and then the beautification that's laid out in the schematics that actually falls on the sidewalks. So maybe it's also a question for the city in terms of when a development like this has greenery within their footprint, that's one thing. And if there is greenery that is identified on the sidewalk, is the development responsible for the maintenance of the greenery that is actually on the sidewalk? Is there a commitment to keep that? And also, I do think that there is I think the building is beautiful. I definitely think it complements the neighborhood, but it's just those open spaces that really accommodate what is an entire community that is going to be coming out of these buildings. So forget about the rest of the community. There is much more traffic, people traffic that is coming as a result of all of these units. And so the open space, and maybe there's open space in other parts of the building, but definitely on the ground level. I just want to understand the maintenance, the ongoing commitment to maintenance, and who is responsible for sidewalk beautification.
I can answer the first part of your question, Commissioner. For maintenance, whenever there's landscaping on the perimeter, what we call the perimeter of the site around the actual PD boundaries, those are usually baked into the agreements that we do through the PD exhibits and statements that the owner and developer are responsible for maintaining. And
So where we see those bump
I'll add
outs.
something for you, Commissioner. So any street trees that go in, they're the developer's responsibility to install and maintain for a period of 5 years. Once the 5-year period is over, as long as those trees have grown, Bureau of Forestry takes over the maintenance of trimming those trees or replacing those trees if they should die. CDOT, who's here today, they have the developers install or do work. There's a perimeter restoration agreement that goes in place. If there's any damage or anything needs to be repaired, it has to be done to city standards or to the CDOT stamp plan. Once it's installed and signed off on by CDOT, they take over maintenance of anything that's in the public right of way in terms of sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and driveways.
Okay.
Anything that might raise above the public right of way by more than 6 inches, like a raised planter or a bench or anything like that, requires a grant of privilege with the city. And then the maintenance obligation is with the developer to keep in place and maintain for the length of time they occupy the city's right of way.
So can you go to the couple of the slides, like on the Lake Street landscape? There are actual physical bump outs, like something like this. So it really falls on what I believe may be the actual sidewalk. And so I'm looking at future costs, right? So if this is then going to be costs on taxpayers as well, I think it's just something to think about. So when the presenters are providing us a plan for beautification and greenery, I just want to make sure that we are aware as to at some point, some of this may actually fall back on the city.
So in this case, anything that's above grade here, so these decorative planters also require a grant of privilege because the city has to be held harmless because there's a freeze and thaw cycle in the city. And if those raised planters end up tilted or warped, the city has to be held harmless and indemnified from that. So the developer has to have a grant of privilege for that. If if through the review with CDOT, they end up using the city standard concrete application, then they would follow the city standards, which is flush, no tilting, the typical sidewalk squares you see. But if to do beautification projects like this, it does require grant of privilege. It's on the developer to maintain. This is routine. I've been to several depositions on trip and fall hazards. It's on the
Okay.
developer.
Okay. Yeah, again, just a continued focus on, we're building a very saturated area here and are concerned for just so many more people, a lot of traffic. I was stuck in this area for about an hour not long ago. And I think we really need to be thoughtful about when we're building communities that are literally going up into the sky, is the impact that it has on the ground, including walkability, resources that the entire community can benefit from, and all of the issues related to traffic. And I don't know if there was a traffic, and I apologize if I missed it, but traffic study in terms of just how we continue as a body to have these plans before us and making sure that we're looking at the mitigation of all of these issues that really are going to hamper everything going east, especially if we're going to have more of these developments coming forward. I just think we need a better understanding of the impact to sustainability, to the environment, to walkability, to family growth, et cetera. Thank you.
Would you want someone to?
I don't know if the city, again, I think this is on us, right? I think, and also, I guess when we see these projects and there's a total landscape beautification project, is just really understanding what is really inherent to the building. Are they getting those credits of green as a result of this? And when it then falls back on the city to understand that there is additional impact on taxpayers, on other issues. So
Yeah, so why don't I just chime in here? One thing I think is important for us is for DPD, when we are looking at our projects, we're looking at them holistically. And so that means that it's much coordination with CDOT, with DOH, as opposed to us just focusing on the development in isolation of any impact, whether it's pedestrian traffic, whether it's vehicular traffic, whether it's increased population, and the impact that that'll have on the surrounding community. We're taking all of that into consideration. And so on some previous slides, you saw KLOA's traffic study to really highlight the traffic impact. We're really, really thoughtful in terms of the coordination with CDOT and just really understanding the impact, right? For us, the development is a positive. We want to highlight public transit and the use of public transit and really highlight the importance of walkability, because we have been so car-centric for so long and so car-dependent. We need to make sure that as we transition from a very car-centric city, we're acknowledging the proximity to public transit. We're highlighting the importance of bike lanes. We're highlighting the importance of having bike spaces in the development and green space throughout. And so you see some of the elevations, you see their public alley and how that's an opportunity to kind of activate communal space. And so it's something that does go noticed. It's something that we are absolutely focused on. And it's not just about the building and the residents in the building, but instead the collective impact and the positive impact that it will have on our city and the neighborhood.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I again, I think the project is really beautiful. I think we talk about this all the time in developments in this area. And so I think being aware of it is just something that we just need to keep talking about. So thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro, followed by Commissioner Dow.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can somebody help me with the diagram, outline the space of the grocer? They're within the retail area. Where does the grocer go?
So the grocer is the big orange retail in the south.
That whole space is going to be the grocer. Okay.
This whole guy.
Look, so let me just make a brief extension to the comments of Commissioner Escareno and La Espada related to the open space, because I think this is important. We've been talking about this for a long time, the open space in Fulton Market, which we don't have many. There's a lot of development. It's great development, beautiful, but it's not a lot of green, open, public area in relation to the amount of building that we're doing in the area. I'll say, however, so it's a trade-off. I do recognize that it's a trade-off. So as I look at this, even though my initial reaction was, I look at the second story or third story, the upper area where there's green and there's an open area. I saw it in one of the renderings. I said, that could have been brought down to lower level or some portion of that so that it could be shared with the community. But I do understand, and I'll say two things then. Number one is the grocer is going to be a very the trade-off is it allows the space to provide for the grocer, which is going to be a very valuable element to the building, undeniably. And secondly, I'll say also, and I'll commend the architectural team and the landscaping team, really between the bump outs and the covered alley, pedestrian, so forth, it's a very creative way of adding new dimension, creative dimension, and walkability around the space. So even though I don't diminish in any way the focus personally and of the body that we've been really putting on the green space, I think in this particular case, there's a little bit of a trade-off where we're adding other valuable elements to the project itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Dowell?
Yes, just this is minor comment, but the slide that has the north-facing view of Racine, the little pedestrian area that's recessed, I just would encourage you to put some light there. It's a blind spot. Thank you.
That one? Yeah.
There's one that shows it, right? Yeah.
Sorry,
We'll wait-
just
we'll
to
wait for
explain
that.
really quick for that. The renderings provided by the landscape architect do not address the architecture of the building. They're just masked and grayed out.
Ah.
So that pocket is actually against a full
Glass.
glass window with an active use behind it. So it's not just a pocket against a blank wall.
Very blank. Okay. Commissioner Brumfield?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple comments, or maybe, yeah, just one comment. If we can go to slides 43, I believe it is 44, the ones that are looking up Randolph Street. Understanding that from building face to the edge of the planters is about 16 feet, is that correct?
I believe something like that. Yeah, that does
Yeah,
sound
I
about right.
think it's the ground level shots that the landscape architect Confluence was walking through.
Oh, the landscape.
Yeah, the ground level. Yes. Yeah, those two in particular, going back, yeah, here and also the one before. Just a comment, because fortunately or unfortunately, images are everything, and I think it would be good to actually understand the real scale of the rendering of this, because I don't feel like it reflects, what's actually in the plan, 16 feet to the edge, from face of building to the edge of the planter, and also what it looks like to be, at least in the plan views or the floor plans, 7 foot clear for possibly a sidewalk cafe, as well as maybe another 9 feet. That really doesn't look like it's reflected here in the image. So I just would encourage you the next time you do go public, it would be good to actually kind of give more accuracy to these renderings, because the images do go a long way. And the same thing if we go to the next slide, if we're talking about, kind of these, vendor spaces, which I think is a great idea on this area. You're going to have a lot of activity here. That dimension, if I'm just looking at it from the eye, kind of looks like you maybe have barely 5 feet clear between those tents, to the edges. So again, I know it's a detail, but it does kind of matter. I was kind of struggling just understanding what this really meant here, as well as how the plantings are. I love the idea of actually a low bench for seating here to encourage that activity. But, again, just from a landscape standpoint, from a streetscape standpoint, just that finer level of detail will go a long way, and also being very sensitive to the materials you are, or the planting materials you're selecting as well. This does look a little overgrown here, both here and also in the cafe. So a general comment as you start to enhance this.
Okay, Commissioner Brooks?
Thanks for the presentation. I have a couple questions. One, if you could flip back to the image that shows the previous design and proposed. In our PDF, it's slide 10. And, also, yep, right there, thank you. Randolph, of course, is a special place for the pedestrian experience because the buildings have a pedestrian-friendly nature. in the previous design, it appears from this rendering that the tower sets back more significantly than the proposed design. If that's the case, could you just kind of speak to what is the difference in setback and why was that decision made?
So the difference in the setback is basically because we were one building in the original proposal and now we are two. So be able to fit both buildings on the site and have adequate separation requirements for zoning, there had to be pushed forward. However, we still step back off Randolph. We've matched other approved step backs off Randolph on the same corridor. So that is why it kind of moved forward a bit. You will see in the design, we did use a lighter material palette to try to create a lighter expression and feel as the building comes to the ground versus the previous proposal.
Thanks. And then my other question is regarding the grocer. Do you have already a potential grocer tenant in mind? Not asking you to state that, but do you already have a potential grocer tenant in mind that would occupy that 18,500 square feet, if that's correct?
Yes, thank you, Michael Esger again. We do have a grocer in mind, the team does, and it's premature to announce, but yes, this has been designed with them in mind. And I just, along those lines, and to respond to some of the other comments, Kevin from CDOT reminded me that as part of this alley that we're improving, that it will be paved with concrete. In particular, there's a 10-foot dedication this project has already made back to the city, and then there's going to be a 6-foot easement to create to create what you saw in those images, and that will be paved in accordance with the Green Alley standards of CDOT. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? No, okay. Again, Alderman Burnett is not here, but we do have a letter of support on this item. So if there are no more questions or comments from the commissioners, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion on this item. Do I have a motion on a proposed residential business plan development submitted by Fulton Grounds Owner LLC for the property generally located at 170 North May, finding that it meets the requirements for approval? Motion by Commissioner Escareño. Do I have a second? Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright? Yes. Thank you. Commissioner Brooks? Thank you. Commissioner Brumfield? Thank you. Commissioner Carney? Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda? Yes. Thank you. Commissioner Dowell? Thank you. Commissioner Escareño? Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Cadaquia? Thank you. Commissioner La Espada?
Yes.
Thank you. I have a recusal on this item from Commissioner Lyons. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yes.
Thank you. And I also have a recusal from Commissioner Tillman on this item. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
The next item today is listed as D5, a proposed amendment to residential business plan development number 1562, submitted by 1016 West Jackson LLC for the property generally located at 1000-1024 West Jackson Boulevard, 230 through 238 South Morgan Street, and 1015 through 27 West Adams Street. The applicant requests a rezoning of the subject property from residential business plan development number 1562 and DS-3 Downtown Service District to DX-5 Downtown Mixed Use District. Then to Residential Business Plan Development 1562 as amended. The plan development will have two sub-areas. Sub-area A will permit the construction of a 25-story building with up to 380 residential dwelling units and approximately 23,000 square feet of retail space, 163 accessory parking spaces, and 380 bicycle parking spaces. Sub-area B will remain as previously approved, subject to future site plan approval, with a maximum of 50 residential dwelling units and a maximum height of 150 feet. The applicant will utilize the Neighborhood Opportunity Bonus to provide additional FAR. The resulting FAR over the entire plan development will be 7.19. This is item 22375. This is in the 34th Ward. James Winter will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Hello again. For the record, my name is James Gwinner with the Department of Planning and Development. The applicant proposes to rezone the subject property from residential plan development 1562 and DS3 Downtown Service District to DX5 Downtown Mixed Use District, then to residential business plan development 1562 to allow for the construction in sub-area A, a 25-story building with approximately 380 residential dwelling units and 275 feet in height, approximately 23,000 square feet of ground floor retail space, and a parking podium containing 163 parking spaces that will provide accessory parking for the PD. The applicant intends to develop sub-area A with up to 50 residential dwelling units in a later phase, which will be subject to future site plan review and approval. No building has been designed for sub-area B at this time. The applicant will utilize the Neighborhood Opportunity Bonus to provide additional FAR. The resulting FAR for the entire plan development will be 7.19. Next slide, please. The subject site is located in near West Side community area. The area contains over 62,000 residents, approximately 28,000 households with an average size of 2.2 and a median household income of over $98,569. Existing land uses in the neighborhood include business, commercial, and residential. Next slide, please. Sub-area A of the site is located at the northwest corner of West Jackson Boulevard and South Morgan Street, and sub-area B is bounded by West Adams Street to the north. Next slide. Slide shows the zoning classifications of the adjoining properties and nearby properties, which are primarily DR, DS, DX, and other planned developments. Next slide, please. The slide shows the proximity to nearby public transit. The CTA Blue Line UIC Halsted stop is approximately 1,200 feet to the southeast, and CTA number 8 Halsted bus stops are 1,300 feet to the east. Here is a building height comparison showing the proposed 275-foot building height in relation to other proposed, approved, and completed buildings in the area as seen from the southwest. This image shows the building height comparison from the southeast. This slide shows the current land use context and building types around the immediate area of the site, a mixture of residential, commercial, and retail uses. This is our project timeline and the community outreach meetings that have taken place. And finally, the planning context. Next slide, please. Yeah, the proposal is subject to the guidelines of the West Loop design guidelines adopted in 2017. In order to ensure that the West Loop continues to build on the central area characteristics of employment, transportation, and be a cultural residential center for the city, the document provides guidelines for tall building designs such as implementing setbacks, providing height transitions, building orientation, and the preservation of solar access. Now I'll turn the presentation over to Michael Esger, the applicant's attorney, who will further explain the details of this proposal.
Thank you, James. Good morning again, Commissioners. Michael Esger from the law firm of Acosta Esger on behalf of the applicant, 1016 West Jackson, LLC. And I just wanted to point out on the previous slide, this was, as James said, previously approved with a building with two sub-areas. There was, and the purpose of what went on in our community process with the 34th Ward was to add a parking lot. It was a transient parking lot to the east side of the property, and that allowed for, and you can see it here outlined in red, that becomes part of sub-area A. So we expand sub-area A to allow for another grocery store, and that will anchor the building, the residential building that's also on Jackson in sub-area A. And the change to that building was that we went from 373 units to 380 units, so a small increase in unit count, a small in going through the community process, and also because of the grocer, a small increase in parking from 125 to 163 spaces, and actually a reduction in height in the residential building, which you'll see as well. So the areas that are outlined in red and blue are sub-area A, and again, the building in sub-area B there's no intention of doing any development there. It's currently leased with a dermatology office and other medical uses. So with that, I will turn the presentation over to Jake Waller from Econoff Saunders.
Jacob Waller with Econoff Saunders Architects, the architect for the project. Thanks, Michael, and thanks to the department for getting us to this point. Like was summarized by Michael, this is really a slide showing the changes from the previous architectural massing and bulk of the building. A reduction of 20 feet on the tower portion, an increase in the number of parking stalls, and the addition at the podium of that nearly 10,000 square foot corner parcel, really just an extension of the podium to the east, occupying that intersection at Morgan and Jackson. Here's two views of the building. Our job here was really to refine what was previously approved. This is really kind of an aesthetic that is a mix of what we would imagine as being post-industrial with a mix of new materials, contemporary materials. We've kept this steel look framework as the center massing and tallest portion of the tower. The new massing at the podium, instead of extending that steel framework another 100 feet or so, we decided to make that building its own element to break down what is almost a 260 foot long frontage along Jackson. And so that corner massing is a more contemporary expression with dark masonry features, dark steel, et cetera. So this steel frame in the center from the existing is still there. It's wrapped with a contemporary sort of infill. One could imagine this having been infilled as an industrial type framework with aluminum and glass curtain wall. A first floor plan, just general highlights here. We'll come back to sort of the circulation of this ground floor a bit later. The large green portion here is a nearly 23,000 square foot grocery retail premises. What was previously approved as the Paseo is a 190 foot long, 30 foot wide outdoor landscaped portion of the project that connects the primary retail entry, the primary residential lobby in red, and then future phases of this development, it is imagined that this will connect to the development along Adams. Typical parking level, nearly 80 stalls. Nothing to comment on here, except there's other back of house features, et cetera. This is a really exceptional feature of this project now with the addition of that corner parcel. This is almost a 20,000 square foot exterior outdoor open space with an incredible view to the city skyline to the east. The purple portion here is interior amenity space for residents of the building. The outdoor amenities will feature a pool, sport courts, really large dog amenities, fire pits, grilling stations, et cetera. The typical tower floor plan here, really that L shape has remained the same from the original approval. We're 19 units per floor with the center core there. This was done, the shortening of the building was done by adding a few units here, becoming a little more efficient in how we laid them out, et cetera. Top level, 25th floor is a mix of 3-bedroom units and mechanical space there in gray. Just our 2D elevations here, again, a mix of what we consider to be core 10 toned orange metal material, defining that framework in the center. Dark masonry there at the podium, at the corner, and various other complementary masonry portions at the podium. A view of the west and north elevations, again, a mix of the dark tones against the orange core 10, very reminiscent of the original approval. A section through the building, typical floor to floor is 9 feet at the apartment unit levels, 15 to 16 feet at the amenity level on level 4, and retail in green there with the 2 levels of parking in between. Vignettes of the exterior elevations, again, much of what you just saw is elaborated on here. Core 10 tone metal, a mix of both this industrial window expression and framework with the more contemporary windows in that center vignette there. This is that circulation diagram that I was referencing earlier. There's a lot going on here. I think we should break it down a little bit here. Starting from the top, residential loading, dotted blue lines coming in from the named alley, Quincy Street. That's an existing 18-foot wide alley. We're effectively at our parcel boundary, making that wider by almost 5 feet by setting the building back. We think that's to the benefit of the project, going to really help bypassing vehicles along the alley there. The large dashed orange line is our retail truck loading and unloading. Directly south of that is the parking ingress, egress for both retail and apartment users. There's a recent CDOT bike lane improvement along the entirety of the south property line, highlighted there in the bright pink. I think that's a great feature for the site. It does limit our ability to directly access the site, but we've come up with some good solutions, I think, with CDOT to make loading and unloading and bike safety happen there. And then the bright blue line is the residential path parallel to the retail back to the residential lobby. One feature of that lobby we think is really important is that this will be a 24-hour monitored lobby. And so there will always be an employee there monitoring the security of the Paseo at all times. And they've got great visibility from this vantage point. Lue and KOA have done a traffic study for the project. The intersections have excess capacity, surplus capacity for development like this. They've also done the TDM, traffic demand management plan, uncoupling rents from parking leases, et cetera. We believe we're in substantial compliance with the West Loop design guidelines. We've kept the tower very thin. We've maintained the street wall. We've infilled will be infilling what is now a curb cut along Jackson that is causes issues for the bike thoroughfare that was put in, pedestrian traffic, et cetera. We think the materials are a good mix of the tones that are in the neighborhood, a mix of the old and the new. And because of this addition at the corner, we've got quite a bit more common outdoor open space than we need. I think many of you probably noted there are no balconies, but you can see we're just under twice the requirement for outdoor common open space at that amenity level at level 4. Again, the materials here, a mix of contemporary feeling architectural grade concrete, sandblasted glass, core 10 tone metal panels, dark metal panels, manganese toned brick, a mix of vision and spandrel glass. Our path to 100 points on the sustainability matrix, really summarized by energy code reductions of 10%, ton of green roof space, indoor water use reductions, waste diversion, CTA displays, et cetera. Because we have such a significant outdoor area, we do need a large, very large detention tank. It's just under 11,000 cubic feet of storage. This happens underneath the parking ramp at that east side. So all the open outdoor spaces are meeting the 100-year flood condition. The rooftops are at 10. I think with that, the remaining slides, I hand it back to Michael.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Michael Esger again. Yes, this project was previously approved in the 25th Ward with Alderman Cicho Lopez, and at that time, we made a commitment, and the team and Anthony Rozovsky from Maverick made the commitment to doing all 20% on site, and that commitment has been maintained. We've updated the slides in accordance with the new 2021 ARO and work closely with the Department of Housing to actually increase the on-site affordable to 76 units. It will be at an average AMI of 60%. And of course, we have that mix worked out where it's dispersed properly, and we've reviewed that with the Department of Housing. A mysterious slide. The team is certainly committed to the goals of the MBEWB and local hiring. We are intending to work with a third-party consultant on it as well, and also our general contractor is also certainly aware of this and is going to assist us with meeting these goals. And the project facts, the cost is approximately $150 million. Construction jobs are approximately 400. Permanent jobs is 25. The neighborhood opportunity fund contribution is $1.38 million with a local contribution of $138,000. And with that, I will turn it back over to James to conclude.
For the record, I'm James Quinter with the DPD. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that the proposal would be appropriate for the following reasons. The proposed development is in compliance with the PD standards and guidelines. It complies with the guidelines of the West Loop design guidelines, promotes economically beneficial development patterns that are compatible with the character of the existing neighborhood. It is designed to reinforce desirable urban features in the surrounding area, includes a level of amenities appropriate to the nature and scale of the project. The proposal ensures a level of amenities appropriate to the nature and scale of the project, repeat that, and promotes safe and efficient circulation of pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles, and promotes transit, pedestrian, and bicycle use. Please refer to my staff report for further details on this project and the plans identified here today. Based on the foregoing, the zoning administrator recommends that the application for the establishment of the plan development and zoning map amendment be approved and forwarded to the City Council on zoning, landmarks, and building standards as such. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We do have a few speakers signed up to speak on this item. First speaker, May Toy, who is against the proposal. Second speaker, Butler Adams, who's for the proposal. Third speaker is Nikki Cantor, who's against the proposal. And lastly, Lindsay Howard, who's against the proposal.
Thank you. I also submitted my name is May Toy. I'm president of the Skinner Park Advisory Council. I'm also vice president of Neighbors of the West Loop. And I submitted a written letter, which I hope you guys all have a copy of. So I'm gonna speak at high. I'm not gonna read this letter, it's 3 pages long, okay? One, when this development first came up, there was a community meeting and over 300, almost 400 people in the community signed a petition against the original proposal. We couldn't come here to speak about that the first time. The second time around, the development team came by and said, hey, we want to add a grocery store, but we're not going to talk about the tower, even though there was much concerns that were raised about the tower. It shares a block. On the west end of this block is Little Skinner. This building will cast shade onto the playground and to the school. You know, for people who have children, sunlight is very important for brain development, you know, for little kids. Okay, when they added this parcel of land, okay, they could have easily redesigned this with the community input to address a lot of these concerns, but instead, nothing. We weren't gonna talk about that. That was done solely to depress community input. And I find that to be bad faith on the part of the developer. And you know, the point I have about this is that there is no open space being added to the West Loop. I have raised that issue over and over and over again. And finally, DPD is like catching on and saying, you know what, in Fulton Market, we need to do this. But the point is, added density without proper public infrastructure harms our community as a whole. Okay, this developer could not even give up 4 inches of setback so people could have a pedestrian experience with trees in our neighborhood. The existing building that this replaces has a 5-feet setback for a green area. Skinner School has a 15-feet setback on the same block. I want development in our community, but I want good development, not development that doesn't work with the community about our concerns. And this one, it does not work with us. And I want to quote something from the zoning ordinance. It's just that basically, I'm sorry. That the development changes should only be approved if they enhance the quality and benefit the public in the surrounding area. Well, this development does not meet that standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Choi. Mr. Butler Adams?
Yes, for the record, again, my name is Butler Adams. I am in favor of this proposal. There have been 2 community meetings on this one. I believe the previous one was sometime near the end of like 2022. And there was one a few weeks ago that I kind of had the chance to tune into. And of course, there have been some minor changes. I will say that I think this current version is much more elegant than the previous design. And the previous speaker said that at the previous meetings, about 300 people were against this project. Well, I was at the previous Plan Commission meeting when this project came before. And out of the 300, not one person could show up here. I was here. I think I was the only one who spoke on that project, and I spoke in favor of this. So I'm just saying that if the current alderman decides to say, no, I don't want this project, the previous one is already approved. So you're going to get the taller building. You're not going to get a grocery store. That's going to happen. I do think that we always talk about the West Loop guidelines. With the fact that the central area plan is being updated for 2024, it will be nice to see this West Loop guidelines also updated because I think they're now outdated. And I do hope that the current alderman can look at other proposals that come in this area and not be scared of the density and of the height, because this area is a part of the expanded central area that has a lot of DX zoning, and there are no height limits in DX zoning. And in terms of shade and shadow, I mean, let's scan cancer. And that's all I have on that.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Ms. Nikki Cantor?
Hi. So I just want to quickly address the reason that not a single person showed up to the previous Planning Commission meeting. And that's because the Investigator General found an Open Meeting Act violation because this specific development was not put on the agenda with adequate notice so we could show up. Thank you. So hello all. Thank you for hosting those of us who choose to make public comment. My name is Nikki Cantor. I am a West Loop community advocate and board member for 2 local organizations. I'm on the board of Neighbors of West Loop, and I also board the Mary Bartleby Park Advisory Council. I am also a West Loop resident, and I live within 250 feet of this planned development. I am disappointed that this development has already reached the stage of the upzoning process. However, I am hopeful that you and your commission will give it the thorough consideration and deliberation as a discussion about whether a statue should stay on the 5th floor. This community strongly believes that those pushing for this development has acted in bad faith and we depend on you, our elected officials and stewards, to ensure that our community needs are met. The developer has not adequately engaged the community. They will not even move 4 inches for us. I have high heels in my closet taller than 4 inches. What is the operational plan for a supermarket? To not interfere with the operations of a public kindergarten next door. Many of you are parents and understand the need for good quality, publicly available early education and development. When this planned development initially went through the process, we were all told the developer met with Skinner West Elementary School. Still, neighbors later told us no contact with school leadership was ever made. Neighbors have repeatedly asked for a resolution for significant issues with this development, including the current design of the dead-end loading zone on Morgan, which a local traffic engineer by profession has said has only a 6-inch margin of error before a delivery truck causes property damage to cars parked on Morgan. Morgan Street is a 290 exit and our next major north-south thoroughfare after Halsted Street. Neighbors have repeatedly asked for a copy of the traffic study, and we have been denied a copy. We deserve transparency from City Hall and this administration. Further, this proposed development does not meet an overwhelming community need. We do not have a housing shortage in the West Loop, much less new construction luxury housing. We anticipate over 6,000 new apartments. We're going to up that to 7,000. You guys just like approve some of Walter's. In adjacent Fulton Market, Alderman Walter Burnett, our vice mayor's work. In fact, your commission reviewed a new double tower development in Alderman Burnett's ward a few blocks away that also wants to open a supermarket retailer on ground level. And a supermarket makes more sense there.
Ms. Cantor, can you wrap up your comments, please?
Yes, I kindly ask the commission, we're not saying nothing should go on that lot. We're kindly asking that you bring it back to the community so we can bring back a better and stronger proposal to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker, Ms. Howard.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Howard. I'm opposed for a myriad of reasons, but will only mention a few. First, this planned development should have never been approved in the first place. I think Nikki kind of went over this. Prior to ward redistricting, it was located in the 25th ward. However, the 25th ward office did not follow their own community-driven zoning process. We were also told in December 2022 that no new legislative actions would move forward until after the aldermanic election in February 2023. So the Plan Commission hearing was barely on our radar. Additionally, the City Council vote on March 15th, 2023 to rezone the property was tainted by the preceding vote to recommend passage by the zoning committee on February 23, 2023, which was determined to be in violation of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, which in turn limited the public's ability to participate in decisions that will impact them. Secondly, the original project for the site was pitched as a bike-centric project that prioritized bike and pedestrian-friendly spaces. A commercial space was to be leased to a bicycle-oriented business, possibly in the form of a bike repair shop or a cafe. The revised proposed project was also pitched to the community, to us, at a meeting with the Alderman's office as a bike-centric project. But other than bicycle parking, bikes do not inform its design. Private motorized vehicles do, which is antithetical to the purported goals of equitable transit-oriented development to create pedestrian-friendly walkable communities that encourage alternative modes of transportation to private vehicles, such as walking, biking, and rolling through people-friendly design. I am a homeowner who lives within 250 feet of the revised proposed project. While many do move to the West Loop and own a car regardless of availability of parking in their residential building, I am a carless person who chose to purchase a home in the West Loop neighborhood of Chicago for its walkability to my job, UIC, my husband's job at the time, Wilson Coors, my daughter's future public school, Skinner West, green space, Bartolome and Skinner Parks, and essential services like grocery stores, Mariano's, Whole Foods, Target, H Mart, just to name a few. Chicago's Connected Communities Ordinance encourages the city and developers to work with residents to carry out equitable transit-oriented development projects to ensure the development meets their specific needs by engaging them throughout the project's process. The developers did not engage residents on this revised proposed project. Our neighborhood does not need a grocery store at the corner of Jackson Boulevard and Morgan Street, but the developers would like approval for one because it increases their chances of acquiring financing for their project. Planned development zoning designations should be considered in collaboration so that community needs are in mind. And a grocery store at this location is not one of them. Oh, sorry, guys. I guess yeah. Anyway, I had a lot more to say. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll open it up back to the commissioners. Do the commissioners have any questions or comments from the applicant? Commissioner Burnfield, followed by Commissioner Escareno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just curious, if the developer could talk a little bit about their community engagement process as it relates to this effort, just so the commissioners have an idea.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Michael Esger, on behalf of the applicant. So we have had several years of robust engagement. We've, under the previous approval, we had meetings with the community, with the neighbors of West Loop, with the West Central Association, and in the 25th Ward, they had a zoning advisory board that was a mixture of folks from the area and other areas in the 25th Ward. And so when it was approved in the first go-around, we had that zoning advisory board, the ZAB, as it was known, or is known, approved, I believe unanimously or certainly overwhelmingly, got a letter of support from them. And the alderman at the time approved it. We also had a letter of support from the West Central Association, which is a chamber, which also has residents that are on its membership on the board and in membership, and the president is also a resident close by. This time around, there was a different process. It's the 34th Ward now. We worked closely with the alderman and his staff, and they also led a robust process, and they really challenged us on several occasions to make some concessions, to try to figure out how can we address some of these needs. And they held, I believe, our feet to the fire on many of these things. And I would say that the project team, and you're seeing it here, has been extremely responsive to some of those concerns. The concerns the first time around was, thank you for providing this nice paseo. You're setting back your building pretty significantly, as Jake Waller pointed out, I believe 30 feet. But it feels enclosed, it doesn't feel safe. So in response, this new design opens it up even more. You're seeing better access, it's more open, there's more sunlight, it's better landscaped, but there's also cameras and a commitment to work with the OEMC to tie those cameras in to their system. There's lighting, there's bird-friendly lighting actually now. And as Jake said, lots of access from the 24-hour doorman. Another concern at the time was height of the building, despite the fact that there's an approved 400-foot tall building down the street, and certainly to the south of us along the Eisenhower, there's several taller buildings as well. Notwithstanding that, because of the efficiencies of the new site plan, we were able to reduce the height by a full 20 feet. That's a material reduction, and I think that is important. Another concern that we heard was not enough parking. Again, we addressed that. We actually need more parking now because of the grocer, and so we've got increased parking. So on every one of these important points, I guess the last one I'll say is just in terms of the public open space and infrastructure and parks, and we've heard a lot about that from the last project as well. This, I'll note a couple of things. One, I was around 25 years ago developing in the West Loop when there wasn't a Bartlemy Park. And at that time, the city felt, hey, you know, there's some density coming, there's development coming. We need to create this park. And I remember then we were part of that process to help shepherd that through. And that Bartlemy Park is only there because of the density and because of the improvements to the neighborhood. We also see with some of the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund bonuses created in this West Loop area, that the aldermen have worked together to fund improvements to some of these parks. Skinner School, I believe it was a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, Alderman Burnett suggested some improvements to Skinner School, I believe $900,000, if that's correct. And so they may, and perhaps it's not enough. And as I've talked, and I've talked personally to May, I've known May for a long time, and Nikki too, for a long time. And my door is always open. My email is available. We have my cell phone. We've conversed directly, and I'm happy to continue to engage on behalf of the team. I know the alderman has done the same. So I, if there's a question about where funds, the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund should go, great discussion. Let's have that discussion. But there is improvements happening. There are streetscape improvements, and this project, by the inclusion of all that open space, and Alderman Commissioner LaSpada said that before, if there are children in this project, there is a place for them to play. If they're in the public, we've now set back our building to provide this paseo. That's a pretty significant open space that is a contribution. So with these developments, and especially, working with CDOT and the department, we're constantly, I think, in the development community, our feet are to the fire to respond to these things. And I think this project really does a good job of it. The only other thing I wanted to say is that with Skinner School, look, this block has been an industrial area for a long time. Bay's English Muffin, with their semi trucks for many years, were coming in and out right next to Skinner School. That's a buffer between us and Skinner, excuse me. This project was a locksmith with a transient parking lot. Again, that's now incorporated into the project. So there's a number of and of course, CDOT's protected bike lanes, and this development is certainly bicycle friendly, certainly taking that into account. 1-to-1, that's 380 on-site indoor bicycle parking spaces. There's also exterior bicycle parking spaces, including a recommendation from CDOT for the grocer to have cargo bike spaces in case people arrive by cargo bikes. So there's been a number of considerations, and all of these concerns we feel like have done a good job to address it. Thank you. I'm sorry it took that much time, but I think that there's a number of things that people need to be aware of. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just add one more thing along that, can you clarify the comment about the IG investigation on not, having the correct time for?
It's
the
the first I've
community
ever heard of it. It was stated that this was a known thing, that there's it's the first I'm hearing of it. I can't respond. I don't.
Just to clarify for the body, it was not a CPC issue. It was a Committee on Zoning issue on posting of an agenda. It had nothing to do with the CPC meeting. Me specifically followed all Open Meeting Act rules and regulations.
And if there was something at the Committee on Zoning, I mean, I was there. I'm not, this is the first I've heard of it.
Okay, just to clarify that. Commissioner Escareno?
Actually, I think you answered it. I was going to ask for clarification about the comment that the plan development should have never been approved, not so much about the investigation, but just to the body to clarify, is this plan development fine in place, and are there any concerns there?
So there is a current plan development that has essentially this same bulk, height, mass, and density prescribed to it. And if for any reason this project didn't go forward, the developer could still move on the existing development that is in place. So the benefit of this development, I think, as you've heard here today, and the department agrees, is you're slightly reducing the density and expanding it over a larger footprint and adding the grocery store and cleaning up additional rights of way with better public realm amenities that go a long way towards making this a better project.
And then just another follow-up, I think the indoor facility amenities are great. I think that there are certainly amenities for the users and the residents of this facility. I do notice, though, that there is little to maybe no exterior greenery. I understand that there's a little bit of a pushback on the setback issue. So just wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the exterior ground level open
Sure.
space and greenery, because I maybe it's been discussed before. I did not note that this time. So more the exterior and open space.
So a couple of things, and I can, if to the extent I'm not addressing it fully, I'll turn it back over to Jake, the architect. So this is there's a narrow sidewalk here on Jackson, and there's also now the protected bike lanes, and there's some features in those bike lanes with like relief islands if I'm using the correct technical term. And so it's difficult to expand, for example, Jackson, if we wanted to. We also have the grocer who's right up, needs that active retail storefront feature right on Jackson. We've tried to offset. And so CDOT has said, look, your sidewalk width is just not wide enough, both on existing conditions, both on Jackson and Morgan. But feel like we've more than made up for that because of the landscaped paseo that we're looking at here on the west side or the left side of the image is our building. The property line is actually sort of where those trees are. And we're set back significantly to the east.
So, excuse me, sorry, I'm not done. So so between the trees and the building, is that your setback? Is that
That's
the
our
property?
Property, yes,
Okay,
that
got
we're
it. Okay,
improving
so
and-
that's
and
where that is.
maintaining, to your point on the previous project.
Got it. So anything on the other side, that is sidewalk.
Correct. Or
Okay.
my
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
To the west of the building is another property then. That's the Bay's English Muffin site so right over here. Other,
Yeah, no, I meant the trees to the building, all of that is open space.
In between.
Yeah.
yes, that's all open.
Got it. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Absolutely.
I'm done.
With
Thank
that,
you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Laspada?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the feedback from our residents. I look at, so Morgan seems like the one space where you could potentially add parkway trees in the future. And I'm not going to speak for Alderman Conway. I'm sure he'll address the body before we're all said and done here. But I can imagine a future where you reconstruct Morgan, you widen the sidewalk significantly or partially, and that opens up space for parkway trees on that side as well. I really appreciate our residents' feedback here. I personally see the equity in what we're designing and building here, particularly in the affordable units. If I were a teacher or a pre-K instructor over at Skinner West, maybe I would want to live closer to the school that I'm serving at. And I feel like the units that you're creating present the opportunity. We're trying to honestly do that in the first ward for our teachers as well. I appreciate that the development does not attempt to fight and push back against the Jackson protected bike lane, but actually works with it, is closing in curb cuts over there. And I personally believe in walkable communities. So having a building that is walkable to a grocery store, to a school, to multiple parks, that is the kind of development that, speaking personally as somebody with a 20-month-old, like that's the kind of community that I'm hoping to create in my ward as well. So I see the value in what we're putting forward today.
And thank you for your comments. In terms of the grocery store, because we haven't really focused on that, it's sort of the hero of the project in a way, right? I mean, it's basically a similar building, a similar massing that was approved previously. This grocery store in this location, yes, it's great that the area is now able to support these stores, but this is a little over half a mile away from the project that we talked about on Racine and Lake or Randolph in May. And so to have a grocer here, this has been again, Jackson is an excellent street that's improving there, but it has been sort of industrial until more recently. And I talked about that, but having a grocer here, kitty corner from a gas station and sort of taking the place of a transient parking lot. I mean, this is great because from a traffic perspective, people that are up in Fulton Market can walk to their grocery store. The people here will have an opportunity to walk to their store. And as you say, there's a lot of residents here coming in and many people that I've talked to, because I've talked to all of the buildings around the area. 1017 Jackson is right across the street. 111 Morgan, I've talked to them and their condo boards, each of 1000 Adams, 1040 Adams. I've personally talked to all these folks and the majority that I've talked to are appreciative of the fact that they can now walk to a grocery store in this area as well. That'll be well lit. That'll be, and so I know there's some, and I respect, as you said, the process and those people that I'm friendly with that perhaps disagree at sometimes, and hopefully we can respectfully agree to disagree on some points.
And I'll just say one more thing, and this is kind of a matter of public information for those who do have continuing concerns about the development. I just want to flag for the room that we're heading into August recess with City Council. That means that the zoning committee meeting that takes this up is not likely until September. So this is not the end of the public democratic process where this development is concerned. Just wanted to voice that. Thank you. That's all my points.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cicho Lopez, and I think then we'll open it up to the alderman to speak on the item.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I just want to address any concerns about process. I think the 25th Ward, in the previous remap, we oftentimes try to do everything we can to provide more input from residents directly. This particular process, again, and I welcome any investigation on this. I welcome any concerns and any improvements that can be done so that we can gather more input. So I echo the comments from Alderman Espada. I think that it is important that we incorporate indeed, more opportunities for green space to make sure that we have more infrastructure for bike lanes and so far. I do appreciate that this project did incorporate the 20% affordable housing component that unfortunately not always is welcome in the in certain parts of the city. So I do want to challenge us all to think about the importance of creating balance between affordability, accessibility, and the quality of life of residents. Unfortunately, not everything can be accomplished in one project. So this is, of course, a cumulative impact that the community in the West Loop, of course, continues to work to address those issues, those concerns. That again, I just want to make sure that I myself make available for any investigations or concerns around process. I do think it is important that we honor commitments. I know that Alderman Espada have said, the importance that the residents know that the developer is working in good faith to improve any opportunities for green space. I do think it's important that we have families who send their kids to local schools. And I think that we've done everything we can to find that balance. I do welcome, again, the opportunity to address any concerns in the next few months that residents may have. I welcome all their comments. We have done it during our time in office, and more so now as part of the Planning Commission. I appreciate the comments. And again, I made myself available for any concerns and investigations on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Alderman Conway, would you like to comment on this?
I would. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. For the sake of the court reporter, Alderman Bill Conway, BILLCONWAY, for the 34th Ward. Since much has been made of the OMA violation, I certainly did look into that matter. It's worth noting I've been a member of the Illinois Bar for 18 years now. And I will actually read from the relevant portion of this just so we can put this matter aside, essentially. And this is a letter dated September 29th of 2023 from the Office of the Attorney General. Getting to the determination portion, and says, this office concludes that the Committee on Zoning did not satisfy the agenda requirements of Section 2.02C of the OMA with respect to the specified zoning change application that it considered for final action at its February 23rd, 2023 meeting. This office requests for future meetings, the committee posts an agenda specific to its meetings that sets forth the general subject matter of any resolution or ordinance that may be the subject of final action at the meeting in accordance with Section 2.02C of the OMA. And then it goes on to say, the Public Access Counselor has determined that resolution of this matter does not require the issuance of a binding opinion. This letter shall serve to close the matter. So it does not actually impugn any bad faith on behalf of the developer or Mr. Esger, but rather of the processes of the Committee on Zoning. Beyond that, I will say that as has been touched upon, this is really an amending a plan development that was previously approved as a 295-foot building back when I was Citizen Conway or Lieutenant Conway at the time. But in our process, this has gone before two community groups. The WCA approved it. And the neighbors of West Loop was asking for a delay, of which Ms. May, Ms. Cantor, and Ms. Howard are part of that organization and are wonderful members of our community. But a lot of the skepticism there was really trying to relitigate the previous approval on that. I would say on balance, the community's behind the trade-offs in this adjustment. It is a 20-foot shorter building. It's only adding 7 units. I agree with concerns about limited park space, but I would note in this amendment, as Commissioner Escarino, I think, brought up, that this is actually adding more recreation space to this building. And the addition of a grocery store was certainly well received. I would note with regard to traffic that CDOT, as well as Attorney Esger, has worked with the attorney of the adjoining property to come to resolution on that, as Mr. Esger kind of discussed in his remarks. And moving broadly to traffic and park space in the West Loop, I appreciate the comments from Commissioner Escarino as well as Commissioner LaSpada, really in regard to the last development. I am someone that I am raising 3 small children at the corner of Fulton and Canal Street. So I am, when we talk about those residents, I am the affected one, and I am nervous that this city has approved 6,000, now 7,000 units at Fulton and Lake and Randolph that are about 6 blocks north of here, and concerned that the infrastructure and park space simply doesn't exist there to handle that. So I only say that as not only the alderman there, but a concerned citizen raising small children, that I hope the big brains on this planning commission keep that, take that into account when looking at future development. I appreciate that. However, in this case, I do support these changes as well as the trade-offs in this amendment, and would ask for the commission's approval. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Nope. Okay. If not, then I'll go ahead and ask for a motion on this item.
Commissioner LaSpada, so moved.
Okay, motion, let me read it.
I did.
Yes. Do I have a motion on a proposed amendment to the residential business plan development number 1562 submitted by 1016 West Jackson LLC for the property generally located at 1000-1024 West Jackson Boulevard, 230-238 South Morgan Street, and 1015 through 27 West Adams Street, finding that it meets the requirements for approval? Motion by Commissioner LaSpada, second by Commissioner Boatright. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright, can you confirm? Yes. Thank you. I have a recusal from Commissioner Brooks on this item. Commissioner Brumfield? Thank you. Commissioner Carney? Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda? Yes. Thank you. Commissioner Dow? Thank you. Commissioner Escareno? Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Cadaquia? Thank you. Commissioner LaSpada?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons? Recuse? Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cicho Lopez? Thank you. And Commissioner Tillman? Thank you. Motion passes.
Very much.
I know, because I switched pages, so sorry.
Let me pause
That did
it.
not help. I was just taking a break. The last item we have today is listed as E1, an informational presentation from the Department of Planning and Development. Staff from the Department of Planning and Development will provide a brief update on the status of the WMBE project compliance in accordance with the mayoral executive order on WMBE participation to the members of the Chicago Plan Commission. Nancy will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman.
Hi,
Gomez,
Nancy.
And members of the Plan Commission. I am here I'm an Assistant Commissioner with the Bureau of Zoning for the Department of Planning and Development, and I'm here today to provide you the update on the MBE, WBE, and local city resident equitable participation, commonly referred to as the local hire programs, that were established under Executive Order 2017-2. By way of background, the executive order was initiated in August of 2017 and requires developers seeking plan development zoning approvals to submit affidavits and supporting documents related to their efforts to promote and incorporate participation by MBE, WBE, and for local hiring for their jobs at 3 times during the development process. The participation goals established in Executive Order 2017-2 include 26% MBE participation, 6% WBE, and 50% city resident workforce or local hires. As noted, the applicants are required to provide reports at 3 times. The first at Plan Commission review, the second at Part 2, what we call Part 2, which is the zoning review associated with the building permit process. And then finally, at the time of final certificate of occupancy at the completion of the project. To help developers and GCs identify qualified and certified MBE and WBE contractors, the Department of Procurement maintains a website that's searchable. They can search by the type of trade and those types of things to look for qualified firms. And then this is also the same location where an MBE or WBE would check in to get certified. In addition, on the Plan Commission's webpage, there is an assist agency list. And this list was actually just updated in May 2024 and includes now 51 total assist agencies. It's important to note that applicants are required to reach out to these assist agencies. So what they do is they'll send out letters, but also they should be coordinating directly with the assist agencies to figure out the best way to either explain their project or get the information out to their members or the community that they serve. In some cases, these assist agencies may actually want presentations. In other cases, they may just simply say, tell us your bid scopes and when those bids are going out. As mentioned previously, the applicants are required to provide reports 3 different times. First time is obviously with Plan Commission. And at this point, they're making projections about where they think they're going to be to meet the goals for the project. Since the adoption of Executive Order 207-2 through June of 2024, 355 PD applications with a combined value of approximately $53.5 billion and with over 177 anticipated construction jobs have been reviewed and recommended approval by the Plan Commission. To date, all the qualifying PD applicants have committed to trying to meet the goals established in the executive order. In this slide, I've highlighted the projects by year. What you'll note is 2017 was a partial year because the executive order was approved in August. So that only includes the projects starting in September of that year through December. And then similarly, obviously, the data for 2024 is also a partial year. At Part 2 review, which is the time when the applicants file for their building permits, this is the second time that they're required to file the reports for the executive order. And at this point, through June of 2024, Staff has completed 221 Part 2 zoning reviews for building permit applications. In some cases, particularly with larger scale projects, there might be multiple permit reviews. So that 221 reviews actually works out to be 187 different building permits within 146 different plan developments. These projects that have gone through building permit review have an estimated value of $18 billion, of almost $18 billion at time of permitting, and they're estimated to have 54,500, give or take, construction jobs. At time of building permit, most of the applicants that are coming through are actually filing an affidavit saying that they still intend to commit to the 26, 6, and 50% goal. But there are a few projects that actually are saying that they have not, they already know at that time that they're not going to meet their goals. So this slide represents where we are cumulatively for those 221 application reviews. And at the time of Part 2 reviews, 24.3% are going to meet MBE, 5.8% are saying that they can meet the WBE, and 48.2% local hire are the cumulative goals for those permits that are issued. It's worth noting that, and this is more anecdotal than actually certified, but we think that a lot of times developers are still trying to be optimistic at this point, and may not really be providing us enough static data. Joe Pena, one of our staff, handed out the forms so that you could see the current forms that are used. Right now, they're only required to provide 2 forms. One of them is an affidavit, and the other one is an Excel database that kind of shows the tracking form. At time of Part 2 review, though, most of them are just providing an affidavit that simply states, this is where we expect to see. Staff believes this is one of those places where we can, under the current executive order, look to make some improvements to the quality and the quantity of data that we request on the Part 2 forms. So staff has been working internally on a supplemental form, as well as looking at making some modifications to that Excel database to try to capture some more static information. Particularly what we're hoping to do is get them to tell us where they are at Part 2 review, because chances are they've already let some of the subcontracts. So hopefully we can see where they are in their process in terms of what contracts they've let and where they are proportionally. As kind of a side note, staff is working on those internally. Once we've got good drafts that we feel comfortable with, we're going to circulate to our commissioner and to our DPD leadership. And then we're also going to review those with Department of Law just to make sure everything that we're suggesting be added can be done under the current executive order. And then we will share them with the Plan Commission so that you will all have the opportunity to kind of weigh in and let us know if there's other things you'd like to see on those forms. The final and third and final report is due at certificate of occupancy. To date, 72 final COs have been issued, and to date, we've received 53 reports. It's been a challenge, to say the least, to get the final reports in, but we're hoping, again, similarly, by making some improvements to the forms that we're working on, we might be able to encourage them and provide a little bit more guidance into the information we're looking for so that we can get better compliance with them submitting the reports. Based on the 53 reports we've received, those completed projects account for close to $3.5 billion in final construction value. And the final tally of those projects is 19.5% combined MBE participation, 6.9% WBE, and 24.2% city resident or local hire. this slide graphically shows you where the kind of disparities are between the goals and the actual performance levels. So the blue shows the goals, the red shows the actual performance, and the only one that's been exceeded so far cumulatively is the WBE compliance, or goal, I should say. We also took a look, and this was recommended by Plan Commission members, to try to provide some more analytics to the Plan Commission, especially now that we have over 50 reports that are filed. So on this slide, what we did is we looked at how many of these projects met 1, 2, or 3, or in some cases, none of the goals. To date, of the 53 projects we've received, or the reports we've received, 2 have met all 3 goals. Yeah. 12 have met 2 of the 3 goals, and 20 have met just 1 of the 3 goals. The remaining 19 did not meet any of the goals. And I do want to mention, because, you know, we've talked about this when we had our chairperson briefing and with the commissioners, some of them may just be just below. Like, for example, there's a couple projects where they were at maybe 48%, you know, so they didn't meet the full, but there's other cases where they were well below the established goals. So it's kind of a mix of how well they really did on these projects. We also looked at kind of how those proportion out. So, you know, obviously with the graphic on the left, you can see 6% of the total reports only met all 3 goals, whereas 35% of the filed reports met 0 goals. Similarly, we looked at percentages of how many meet the MBE versus the WBE and the local hire. The WBE was achieved by over 50% of the projects. MBEs was about 25%, and then local hires is the one that really people seem to struggle the most with. Only 6% of those reporting in met that goal. We believe anecdotally in discussions with some of the GCs separately is that part of the issues with the local hire is that you know, Chicago has a history of being a very strong union town. A lot of their workforce is already part of their team. So what they're trying to do is add on additional staffing. And a lot of cases, you know, they'll tell us that, you know, the union staff was out of town. But we think there's still better opportunities for them to improve those numbers. We just really need to get a better grip on where the real challenges are, to see if we can kind of, you know, dissuade them to figure out a way to help them improve those numbers. This is meant to be a recognition. So these are the 2 projects that have met all 3 goals. One of them is 4424 and 4424 and 4434 South Cottage Grove. And then the other one is 2424 South Halsted. So really, this is really just to recognize the 2 developments and development teams that met all 3 goals. This map shows basically just the plotting of where these projects are. So the blue shows the projects that were approved by Plan Commission. The green shows those that have gone through Part 2 permitting. And then the red includes those projects that have gotten their certificate of occupancy. And we've tried to see, because they're a little bit small, but we tried to put 2 little red stars on those projects that met all 3 goals. In addition, we've been doing some ongoing conversations and research, both internally and externally, to get a sense of what we can do, first of all, under the current executive order, and also to understand what might trigger a need for either an amendment or a new executive order. And we've also had conversations with IGA so that we can understand that process for doing a new executive order. if there's more substantial information or details that the commission ultimately would like to see that we can't do under the current executive order. For example, it was suggested in the past that maybe we could add veteran-based enterprise businesses as one of the categories. Something like that would require an amendment or a new executive order. There was also a suggestion to try to get increased number of reports beyond the 3 that are currently required. That also would require an amendment to the executive order, since the executive order specifically says 3 reports. Some things that we can look at, though, and which we're starting to do, is look at updating those forms. And so, like I said, we're pretty close to having drafts that we're going to be circulating internally. And then once we get through what we think will pass in DPD, we'll circulate those to Department of Law to make sure they're comfortable with those under the executive order. And then we'll bring them to the Plan Commission so that you guys can all see those. The other entity we spoke to is procurement services, just to see, and just for distinction, they work on the tracking of the projects that have actual public funding. So there's actual requirements for people to meet the established thresholds. For the executive order, if you recall, these are just goals, and they have to be goals because this is a zoning amendment and it's private money. But we talked to procurement services just to see if we could get any sense of how they do tracking, and also we wanted to get a sense of performance. What we found out is they have a software system. We talked a little bit about this internally, and we just don't think it'll work for PDs. So again, we're going to work on improving the forms so that we can provide better guidance on the type of information we want, and hopefully give them a better tracking system. And then we also found out from procurement services that it's not uncommon for them to issue what they call good faith waivers. And in those cases, you know, their people will explain why they can or cannot meet certain goals, or why they can't meet the requirements. And they will issue good faith waivers for those projects that have made a good effort. We also did some external outreach. We had heard that maybe some other communities might be doing this. Again, Joe Pena, part of our team, had reached out to a number of different communities. And basically, the only 2 that we found that does something kind of similar, but not really, are Boston. Boston actually started after us, well after us. They started in 2022 requiring what they call like a diversity plan at the time of the development of the larger projects. This is something that they said really doesn't have teeth, and it's something negotiated at the time of the project. They will file a diversity plan at the beginning, but at the time that Joe and myself, we spoke to the Boston staff, they had no follow-up reporting requirements. They had no any sort of anything to say whether or not they met the goals. There was nothing beyond them providing a diversity report at the beginning. They also, though, did have a team in place that would help try to make some connections between the developers and minority and women-based businesses. The other entity that we spoke to was San Francisco, and specifically we spoke to their workforce coordinator, because they said they had a local hiring program that sounded a bit similar. But once we talked to them, again, it was more focused on publicly funded projects and those that have development agreements. And so it really is not apples to apples. You know, they have people that help assist and make some connections with local hiring. But again, a lot of it is tied to these publicly funded projects and development agreements. And they have an added fees and things that are built in to help cover the staff to help make these connections between developers and some of the local workforce people. So there is absolutely no one else doing, as far as we can find, no one else doing what we're doing in terms of having goals for planned developments that are on private development projects or privately funded projects. And with that, I am going to open it up for questions and discussions.
Thank you, Nancy.
Of course.
I do want to just state this on the record that we had one person just wanting to state their name in support for the proposal. They're not going to speak on the item, but Mr. John P. Jones from Grow Greater Inglewood. They're just following this executive order and they're wanting to us to acknowledge that.
Okay.
I obviously got a briefing yesterday about this and I had comments, and then, you know, listening to it today, I realized that when you were summarizing the totals, you know, we just focused on the 53 that actually reported, which is great, but I do feel like we need to keep track of those that didn't report as being in zeros, right? For every category, because that's the most alarming thing, that over a third didn't even report. And why did they get an occupancy certificate, right? So I don't want to forget that there's a big number that doesn't even bother to submit.
So we can, to that point, we can run it two ways, because I think it's important to see the data for the ones that actually filed, obviously. But then, yeah, we can rerun the data and say, this is holistically for every project that was completed and show those disparities. For sure, we can start doing that going forward. With respect to why they got a certificate of occupancy,
Yeah.
there's no requirement anywhere. It's not in the executive order that states that they cannot get a certificate of occupancy.
I understand that legally, but as a commitment that they signed on, right? We need to make them accountable that they did not produce and that they actually didn't report either,
Yeah.
right? So to me, it's very important that when they come back, we know that as a body,
Yeah.
so that we make them accountable.
And to that point, again, you know, we talked a little bit more in depth about these forms that we're working on. And one of the things we want to do is not only capture the static data, but we also want to capture who the GC is, because we've got this disconnect between developers coming in, and then sometimes it's 2 to 3, 5 years later that these projects come in and get permitted.
Yeah.
The developer can change, right? Like, so, but also the entity then starting at the building permit time that's really charged with tracking all this stuff is the general contractor. So one of the things that we're going to be hopefully incorporating into the new forms, assuming we can do it under the current executive order, which I think we can, is to ask them to now provide us who is the general contractor. If it's a joint venture, who's the JV general contractor? What is the point of contact, and who is responsible for your MBE and WBE tracking? And I think by putting it out there and saying, you've got to provide us all the information, it's going to reinforce the importance of this, that, hey, if they haven't established a point of contact at time of permitting, they're behind the 8 ball at that point. I mean, they really need to get going if they hadn't already done so. So I think it'll force them to be more proactive, hopefully. And then when we expand, hopefully we can expand that tracking form where we can actually fill in and show them the columns that we want filled in and have it as a more interactive kind of fill-inable form that really provides some more guidance about the information we need. I'm hopeful that those two tools, like improvements, even under the current executive order, might get increased participation, because it's no longer just, oh, just refile the same affidavit, right? It's, you know, now you have to put a little bit more thought in at part 2 review. At least that's our hope.
And I know Noah wants to add to
Yeah,
that.
just wanted to add, I think Nancy didn't go into the details, but one of the other things that we're looking at as when we revise these forms, and I think actually Alderman Laspada brought this up a couple months ago, is we are also looking at, after these updates, putting up a very basic list of who the contractors or the entities were that are applying for the PDs. So you'll at least have a tracking record of who did not bother to report. And the next time they're here, the question can come up, why didn't you report? What do you owe us? And it wouldn't be necessarily a way to go out of our way to shame the list, just informative, basic information, just so that there's some tracking of what's happening.
I think Commissioner Kadaika wants to make a comment.
I've got a couple of comments. One, we'll start from the most minor perhaps. One is there any way to do this by email, having recently worked for a firm that had to deal with contacting some of these folks? There's the big list and we send them out by mail and we get a lot of bounce backs. I'm sure that would happen with email as well, but it just seems like a more effective way of making this happen. So I'll just leave that as a comment. You don't need to respond to that. The second is, again, a general comment. The contractor works for the developer. So that should mean something. And when the developer comes in, maybe they should just report out as to how their last project went. And we should set them up for success by, if we were going to do this, let them know well in advance, so that you only get the public black eye, or whatever we want to call it, if in fact you had plenty of warning and just kind of didn't really pay any attention. And let's see, what else? I've got a couple of other things here. Oh, I would note that it's no coincidence that one of the two that made it on the list was an affordable housing developer.
Exactly. Yes.
And also, I've got a list. Let's see. Yes, and then the last one is, to me, the most important point, and this would certainly require, an update to the executive order, but since this has been on the screen. How about that 6% WBE? Can we do something about that? That's just a suggestion.
Raising
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, no, I do.
Something like a bigger number.
We are half of the population, right? Too bad the businesses are not there, but yeah. Commissioner La Espada?
Thank you so much. Oh, you ask for more information and then it just makes you angrier. But I appreciate the presentation. It gives me many questions. We had asked for the form last time. To be clear, when we talk about the report that only 50, 53, 52 can manage to fully complete, this is the report, right?
So it's the affidavit,
Yes.
and then the second form
Which we
is
have right
a
here.
database, okay? And this is an Excel spreadsheet. And what we ask them to do is fill out one of those for each of their subcontractors, and then to provide us the summary on top. We don't ask right now, we currently do not ask for a written report. Sometimes people will provide some, like there's certain contractors that will say, hey, here's a summary of what we did, and they like to do it for themselves. But you're right, those are the two things that are only required right now.
I find it very interesting. I would like to know if it can be provided through DPD, the number of good faith waivers that have been put out there by procurement.
We
they
can
provide that?
do some research on that, yeah.
No, it has.
Just separate and clarify that. So through the executive order, the projects that are self-financed, are not seeking any city incentives, there is no requirement to hit a number, so there's no waivers given. Their numbers come in and they're reported. Right now, the way it happens is we had one. We'll use one that's on the list. We knew it was going to happen. Alderman Michael Scott was there at the time. It was a precast tilt-up panel warehouse. There are 0 registered and licensed women or minority contractors available to do that work. It was like 75% of the contract. So they knew they weren't going to hit the numbers. So they've come in, their numbers are way off base. But there's no waiver because there's no recording, there's no RDA, there's no punitive damages, there's nothing to give the waiver on. So the waivers that Nancy's speaking about are when there are city-funded or city-assist projects that have an RDA, then they come in, Bally's did it with some of their stuff for the casinos, said there's no dice makers that qualify it. So as part of their contracts, who are we going to get our dice from? That is exempted out of the total or exempted out of their obligations.
I totally get that, sir. And as you and I talked about before, when we put that information out there, maybe that puts in the information in somebody's head. Maybe this is a business I should be starting.
So again, a lot of these things like are in infancy, we through that back and forth, is that when we go and list these, we're going to tell them we're listing you. Do you want to say something about why your number's low? And let them put a comment that says, we came in at 17% instead of 26, and here's why. And at least that way, as part of their shaming or exposure, they have the ability
Transparency.
to rebut it and say, this is why we didn't hit it.
Yeah, and that could be part of the final report requirements, is just have them provide just a summary of, what they think they did well and what they think they could do better, but also to explain things like what Noah said. I talked to a couple people, and it's more so with like the industrial type projects where, they have, literally 3 parts to the contract. It's concrete. All they're doing is building the shell. Like they have concrete, they have painting, and there's very few, if any, that are qualified. So there might be some explanation as to why they can't meet it, but right now they're not required to provide us anything other than those 2 forms.
Yes.
Yeah.
My only other question was, the same as we can expand the executive order, can we legislate adjacent to the executive order? For instance, is there a world hypothetically where we pass an ordinance that you can't get a certificate of occupancy for one of these projects unless you have fully complied with the executive order? Hypothetically speaking.
I don't want to just be,
Yeah.
talk with law about how that looks because this is a recommendation. Now,
Yeah.
when it's tied to a redevelopment agreement, it's a requirement,
Yes.
right? And so as part of that redevelopment agreement, you're required to not only fill out these forms, but you're submitting progress reports to basically show how you're performing, right? And that's a quarterly reporting mechanism. So we would definitely have to talk to law. One thing that I'm encouraged by is the conversations that we're having now about having developers be a lot more thoughtful and make a concerted effort. In order to hit 26.6, you have to want to. You have to be committed to it. It has to be thought out. You're not going to just stumble upon 26% MBE and 6% WBE. And so I think this conversation is an important one and a timely one, because if there's ways that we can encourage more thoughtful engagement, they have MBE, WBE consultants. This is what they do.
Yeah.
And so when developers don't know how to reach it, when developers want to do more than just mail the certified mailings to the assist agencies that you saw on the prior screen, there's an opportunity to say, hey, these are the trades that I know for a fact I can get MBE, WB participation from. And not just MBE, WBE, 50% city residency, right? In terms of just the local hiring participation. And so again, I'll say it one more time. I think this is why these conversations are really, really important, because it goes beyond just checking a box. It's really making that concerted effort to say, hey, representation is important across my project. And that might mean that I have to engage other contractors besides the usual suspects that I typically have.
No, I hear you, Commissioner. I'm thinking about the transparency, I'm thinking about the accountability, and then I'm thinking, well, I'm gonna go back to my day job after this, and how do I use that role to support what we're talking about here? But I appreciate the information. Even if it's difficult information, we know how we can proceed based off of it. Thank you.
Commissioner Cicho Lopez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also interested on looking at the data for those applicants that have not reported. I do think it's important that we look into that to close those loopholes. I think that also the conversations with the law department. I think that we are in a time where local hiring and MBE contracting is critical. The creation of local employment and the expansion of equitable development depends on developers actually fulfilling commitments and working in good faith and intentionally to achieve those goals. I think that the city or residency requirements as well. I do think that there's so much work that to be done in this area for what I hear in a lot of local contractors. This is a problem when we cannot generate employment locally. And I do think that it will not be done by the goodwill of developers, unfortunately. I do think that it'll be done by legislation or executive orders expanding our authority. Because this is a recurring problem. And again, I'm not really worried about developers saying that we are divisive by working to advocate for working class communities and as well as oversee development from beginning to end. I think this is sloppiness. It is it is because, again, we do not push the envelope to make sure that they are, again, as it says here, there must be penalty or when there's no true, accurate, or complete reporting. And I do think that we must work towards that, especially in a time where we see many of our communities in need for creation of employment and local contracting. So again, I would like to, one, look at those applications where there was no reporting. And I think that I'll also like to be part of those conversations with the law department so that we can expand on our ability to oversee this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Brooks?
Question regarding the rationales that developers expressed as to why they were not able to meet all three of the goals.
So right now, they're not required to provide any rationale. So right now, they're only required by the executive order to fill out those two forms. And so there's a few that have actually reached out to me proactively when I asked for the reports that have said, like, you know, we tried, but as Noah's example is, you know, there's certain trades where there just were not MBEs and it's such a heavy part of their job. Or in one instance, they talked about they had such a significant amount of painting, they couldn't get an MBE or WBE that essentially had that capital to be able to handle the project, right? Like, so there's a lot of anecdotal things that they've been telling us, but based on our current forms that were approved by Plan Commission back in whatever, 2017, when this first started, they're not required to provide a set of explanation. So that's one of the things we're working on. And then we'll work through our commissioner and Department of Law and then make sure they come back to you guys as well before we finalize.
Okay.
Commissioner Escareno?
Earlier is that I think that there is a transparency for this group, right? So when we are reviewing a project, and I don't know, maybe we need to talk about what the transparency is for us to just, you know, have more information as we make decisions. I do think that it is hard when these developers, these are private developments. These are not, you know, publicly subsidized projects. Having said that, I do think in making decisions to improve how we are, or to make better decisions as a group, is what is it that we want to see? What would help us? I think to your point, you know, a third has not even responded. So I also think this data goes back a few years, right? Because it takes many years to understand. It would be good to understand where is the reporting not happening? Is it at the developer? Is it at the GC? And then really understanding where those, you know, lack of information is coming from so that maybe we can at least have questions of the developers when they're coming forward. So if Rosa Escareno, the developer, did not submit ever any information and the developer coming before us is going to use Rosa Escareno again, then, well, why? You know, what are you basing the decisions on, who you're using as your GC? So I think there's a lot here, right? I think that for us is maybe more information and as a group coming together to see what kind of information, transparency can be provided as part of our decision-making.
Commissioner Tillman?
I think that one of the items that you've talked about in your discussion with law is, you know, you have the 3 reporting opportunities. That kind of understandably at the beginning and the end of the project. But that middle area, I think, is where that transparency as well as, some of the information could be lost. So at permit, we all understand that general contractors have already made their commitments. They already know who their subs are, and there's not really the ability to kind of move that needle at that point. So in looking at where that middle area, if it's only 3, where that middle reporting happens so that there can be either some advocacy or something to understand, how to either push things forward or where the projects may stand.
And that is exactly why, as we looked at this stuff and now that we have the data, we're like, that part 2 report is the one that we need to beef up. Like, that is the one where we really need to say, you need to provide us more information about what you've done to date. And we could probably also ask for a summary maybe to say, well, what are you going to do to help try to meet the goals? Like, so we completely agree wholeheartedly. That part 2 report is the one that we really want to focus on to try to get that beefed up.
Yeah, I also just, again, thinking about Commissioner Brooks' comment, like from what we've talked about, the success stories are all about joint ventures. So pushing that on, I think it's key so that they know that the capacity excuse is not an excuse anymore. They have to get creative about how they're going to meet these numbers. That's the whole point. So how do we also become more transparent about sharing those success stories so that they go and use that strategy, that process to their benefit, right? So transparency in both ways. I think that's key. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay, I think we're done. So there is no vote on this since this was just an informational presentation. So we will move onward. And this is basically our last item. So this concludes this month's meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Commissioner Boatright. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Escareno. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright. Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Thank you, Commissioner Brumfield. Thank you. Commissioner Carney is not here anymore. Commissioner Castañeda. Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Dowell stepped out. Commissioner Escareno. Thank you, Commissioner Flores. Yes. Commissioner Cadaquia. Thank you, Commissioner La Espada.
Yes?
Thank you, Commissioner Lyons. Thank you, Commissioner Piñeiro.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Sicho Lopez. Thank you. And Commissioner Tillman. Thank you. Thank you all for sticking around. We'll see each other next month. This month's meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission is now adjourned at 1:42 p.m. Thank you.